Thomas Paine, Thomas Paine, Thomas Paine, Sam Adams, Sam Adams, Sam Adams, Benjamin Franklin, Benjamin Franklin, Benjamin Franklin. These men spoke up for what they thought was right. From their courage came such documents as the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States. From their willingness to speak what was sometimes unpopular but right, we enjoy such liberties as freedom of speech, the right to keep and bear arms, and freedom of religion. There are those who still wish to oppress our freedoms, and there are still patriots willing to stand up and defend life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Men like Zeb Bell, who honor our founding fathers and what they stood for. It's now time for Zeb at the ranch, speaking up and defending your freedoms. Brought to you by Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers and all of the other great advertisers on the program. And now, Zeb Bell.
I'm going to dedicate these opening remarks to my engineer, Wheels. Listen carefully. You never know when it will strike. But there comes a moment when you know that you just aren't going to do anything productive for the rest of the day. Good morning, everybody. Here comes Kate Smith and God Bless America, followed by a Patriot. Come on, call in, Patriots, with our Pledge of Allegiance. Oh, I love that lady's voice. And look outside this morning at the beautiful sun and the blue skies. Good morning. Man, it makes you feel great. Went out for my morning walk about an hour ago, and oh, it is beautiful. Zeb at the Ranch, I'm Zeb Bell with our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations serving you. And, of course, some of our great advertisers, including Western Way Services, always at your disposal. Call them today, 734-6969. And right now, it's time for our Pledge of Allegiance. Good morning.
How are you this morning, young man?
Hey, my buddy. Go ahead with the pledge, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, you are good, good, good. Thank you very much, Dal. God bless you and your wife. Have a great day.
You too.
All right, thank you so much. I love those people. They're really, really nice folks. Hey, right now it's time for the weather, and the weather is brought to you by our friends at Cheney Flooring and Home Design, 1228 Oakley Avenue in Burley. Look for the blue door, and don't forget, for the whole month of October, they're having a huge fall sale. Actually, it's already started, goes all the way through October. Everything is discounted in the store, so why don't you stop in and see them today for all your carpet and flooring, kitchen construction, home decor items, whatever you need to make your house a home. You stop in and see them today. Cheney Flooring and Home Design, 1228 Oakley Avenue in Burley. Yep, look for the blue door. And here's Gina with the weather.
We're looking at fairly nice weather for most of the week, but as we get into the weekend, we do have a slight chance of rain showers in the forecast. Good morning. Here is your weather forecast for this Tuesday, September 27th, and sunny skies for today. Looks like it's going to be a little bit breezy. Winds out of the northeast right around 7 miles an hour. High of 78 tonight, low of 45 tonight. Sunset's going to be at 7:22. For tomorrow, sunny skies, high of 80 with an overnight low of 52. More clouds going to be rolling in on Thursday, so we're looking at partly cloudy skies. Temperatures dropping to about 74 with an overnight low of 51. Mostly sunny and 74 for Friday, but as we're looking at the forecast right now, looks like we do have a slight chance of afternoon rain showers on Saturday, which are going to be picking up just a little bit, and a high of 65. Yesterday's high was 75. The overnight low was 40. That is your weather for Zeb at the Ranch.
Oh, thank you, Gina. Excellent job, and thank you very much. And don't forget Cheney Flooring and Home Design, 1228 Oakley Avenue in Burley. Look for that blue door. Hey, by the way, don't you forget at Burley Livestock Sale Yard. Big sale on Thursdays, and they're waiting to serve you at 1100 Occidental Avenue in Burley. And the telephone number to call for consignment information and sale information, 678-9411. Merv May, Cade Rocky, Lance Udy, all the folks over there. The sale that does work for you, the Burley Livestock Sale Yard. Thursday sale day at 1100 Occidental Avenue in Burley at 11 a.m. We're going to start taking your calls in just a few moments, and I want to remind you that the Joe Engel Composite Squadron, local unit of the Civil Air Patrol, is hosting an open house at 6:30 p.m. on Thursday, this Thursday the 29th, and it's going to be at the Squadron building located at the Burley J.R. Jack Simplot Airport, and members of the Squadron will be present to greet visitors and explain CAP's missions for America. These are some really nice folks. Be sure and stop in. Don't forget Two Darrow's Cleaners, and we were over there yesterday, as a matter of fact. I had to pick some clothes up. Really good folks. And I want to stress the fact that if you're going hunting and you're getting all your gear together, okay, here's my gun, there's the ammo, here's the food pile, there's everything. Oh, sleeping bag. Hey, honey, go up in the attic and get my sleeping bag. Oh, brother, it hasn't been opened up since last hunting season. When you unfurl that dude, it's going to drive skunks into the woods. You better go get it cleaned. Absolutely right now at Darrow's Cleaners, 1223 Albion Avenue in Burley. They're waiting to serve you. Okay. By the way, too, SafeLink Internet. Wills, are you over there? Something sounds really different or hollow or not turned up like it should be. Would you check that for me, buddy?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. SafeLink Internet at 677-8000. Fast, reliable, and they've got over 10,000 customers in this area, and they're happy. And don't forget, SafeLink has also increased their technical support team, and they are good. Call them today. Get on the program. 677-8000. SafeLink Internet serving you. You know, I'm not going to be one of these talk show hosts that's going to sit there and say, well, Trump definitely did this, and Trump absolutely won that, or Hillary said this, or Hillary lost or won that. You kind of feel this morning, and I want you to call me and let me know your feelings on this, but you feel like you're in a laundromat dryer, and you're spinning and spinning and spinning. That's what's happening after last night's debate. Every single network, every single talk show host is out there spinning what happened between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton last night in the first debate. Let's kind of break this down honestly and not listen to some of these people with their balderdash. Absolutely, the beauty or winner is in the eye of the beholder. If you're a Democrat, you're going to rail and carry on about what a great job Hillary Clinton did. On the other hand, if you're a supporter of the GOP and want to see Hillary way off in the distance as to never winning, you're going to say, well, Trump just absolutely ruled last night. Well, maybe. What I'm going to do is give you a fair kind of analysis of what happened and not predict winners and losers. Hillary did say that without even using the words higher taxes, she came out and said that we are going to have to pay a lot more, and that refers back to taxes. We're going to have less jobs because she's going to go after the rich. Hey, come on, just use the simple math. We're going to tax the rich. Well, who are the supposed wealthy? They are the entrepreneurs. They are the business owners. They are the business leaders. And she's going to go after them and try to tax them a lot more, which means, in essence, there will be cutbacks in small business and business in general, and that means less jobs. And she said she wanted more renewable energy. Okay. We both know, you and I and everybody in between, that renewable energy has not worked. It has not carried the ball down the field and scored a touchdown. It has been an absolute loser financially. She wants to double down. She wants to take more of our money and really support solar energy. And by the way, later on this morning, I'm going to have Marita Noon on the program. We're going to talk about that. She made other statements last night in regards to, and here's the phrase she used on a couple of occasions, debt-free college. Debt-free college. Now, I would like to know, unless you've got a big sugar daddy that can write out a humongous check, and it's not going to hurt him, and it's certainly going to help you, how you can ever have debt-free college. She's got an answer for that. We're going to pay as taxpayers. Caller, I'm going to ask your indulgence. Stay with me. You're the next call. I'll get right with you. Stand by. Ramsey Heating and Electric at 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley. Excuse me, I got a frog in my throat. And they're open from 7:30 to 5 Monday through Friday. And don't forget, they've got all your furnace filters. I was looking ahead at the weather forecast next week, and it's going to be in the 40s. So you better start checking out your furnace and your heating. Make sure it's all running efficiently. And call them, 867-80459. Ramsey Heating and Electric at 2600 Overland Avenue in Burley, where they provide warm winters and cool summers. I'll be right there, caller. Don't forget, too, Denny's Restaurant, America's Diner. Wow, they are good. The food is delicious. The people are so nice. And we're going to be over there this Thursday, day after tomorrow, for our September lunch bunch. And that's at 611 Overland in Burley. And they also have another location in Twin at 291 Pole Line in Twin Falls. Well, breakfast, lunch, dinner, anytime, all the time at America's Diner. It is fantastic. Denny's Restaurant in Burley. Caller, thank you for your call. Go ahead, you're on the air.
Good morning, Zed. I want to apologize to you for questioning your wisdom yesterday.
Oh, my.
That is about the owner of the Dallas Mavericks.
Yes.
There's nothing shown about him or said about him or anything, but I'll bet he was out there in the audience, you know, with the facial expressions and everything to try to distract Donald. What are your thoughts?
I'm not going to argue that. Of course, there were probably many Republicans out in the audience last night that had disdainful looks and eye rolls and twisted gestures for Hillary. I think if you're going to be fair, you got to say that both sides, both camps, absolutely hold a great disdain for each other. So I think in fairness, yeah, it happened.
You know, my wife pointed out something. She wouldn't call because she got a little bit timid that way, but she said with Hillary, looking at that background, that they're doing a little more of a close-up on her than they are on Trump. Because they could show Trump with, you know, if he's fidgeting or anything else, but on her, they had a direct focus on her. And I believe she was right.
Well, she may have been right, but I also noticed something else, and your wife was very perceptive. But as far as looking at the candidates and looking at their facial expressions and looking at their demeanor and their body language, I will say that in the last 45 minutes of the debate, and this is open for public scrutiny to call me and say I'm wrong, but if you noticed on the split screen when they showed Hillary looking at Donald Trump in the last part of the debate last night, she looked like at any moment her eyes were going to close and she was going to fall asleep. There were a couple of occasions where she blinked continuously, and some of those blinks stayed together quite a while.
Well, I think she had reached the point of total exhaustion. I don't think I could have done as well as she did. And she did show a pretty good deal. But, Lester Holt, they may say he was neutral, he may be a Republican, but when he interrupted Trump 30 times and her only 12 times, that's not exactly equal in my eyes.
Well, actually, Keith,
his questions were not hardball questions.
Actually, Keith, Lester Holt interrupted Trump more than that, quite a bit more than that. And Lester Holt also was wrong about the constitutionality of stop and frisk. And I listened to some of the attorneys this morning and verified this, that Lester Holt was wrong, and he did pull a Candy Crowley last night, and I thought better of him. But he tripped over himself, he made a bad mistake there, and I've lost a lot of respect for him.
Likewise, I thought, well, especially if he is a registered Republican, that he would not act the way he did, but there was bias shown as far as I'm concerned.
I agree with you. Go and tell your lovely wife I said hello, and thank you for your call this morning, my friend.
You bet. I sure will.
All right, thank you. Caller, I'll be right there. Got to pay some bills. Be right with you, I promise. Don't forget Berry Equipment and Rental. We're going to be talking to them on Thursday for our business salute. I just wanted to pass that on to you. They have 3 locations to serve you here in the Magic Valley: South Lincoln and Jerome, Addison Avenue West in Twin Falls, and 159 West Highway 30 in Burley. You know what? They just have all the equipment to get the job done right. And they've got a repair shop at the Burley location. I mean, fix things from small engines all the way to the big dudes, the heavy equipment. I mean, they can help you. Equipment rentals, retail equipment sales, it's all there. Like I said, they have the equipment to get the job done right and the knowledge to help you at Berry Equipment and Rental, Jerome, Twin Falls, and 159 West Highway 30 in Burley. Caller, good morning, and thank you for your patience.
Okay, good morning, Jed.
Hello, Tony. Good morning, and how are you?
I'm doing well. Well, too many people that you talk to, we get around down at the mall, don't realize that Putin and the terrorists are working together to bring America down. And if Hillary Clinton ever gets in, Putin will walk all over her. And pretty soon this country will be taken over.
I got into a spirited debate the other day with someone that said, well, all of Hillary's accomplishments. And for me, in a verbal argument, sometimes it gets a little wild and woolly, but I bit my tongue and I waited until this man was done with his tirade in favor of what Hillary had done. And I said, okay, you say she's accomplished so much. Just tell me 3 items of what she has accomplished, either as a state senator or as Secretary of State. Just go ahead and tell me. And my friend got really upset and hung up the phone. So evidently he wasn't really ready to attribute any great achievements to Hillary because he couldn't think of any.
Well, there's one other thing that Trump probably should have brought up. Remember some years ago when Hillary made that investment for, I don't know what it was, $100,000, and she came up with $1 million out of it?
Yeah, funny how that works.
A bank scandal?
Yeah. Well, I remember it very well.
All that?
What did you say?
There was something about her making an investment of I don't know what it was, $10,000 or $20,000, and that suddenly turned into $1 million.
Yeah, I believe it.
Whatever it was.
I believe it was in the livestock futures. It was in the livestock futures market, Tony, I believe, and it's funny how the golden wand of money and fate really shone upon her.
Yeah, and this woman's a walking disaster, and I hope she folds up like a paper bag with the next debate.
I don't know what's going to happen in the next debate, which is, by the way, going to be on a Sunday, and it's going to be October the 9th. And I fear that it's already cut and dried. I heard somebody say yesterday, and I have a tendency to agree with them, that most of the factions, whether they are leaning to the left for Hillary or leaning to the right for Trump, have already made up their mind, and the independents are really the audience that is going to decide this election. And I wonder where they are at after this first debate.
Well, we enjoy freedom right now, and if she ever gets in, we're going to lose a lot of our...
I agree with you. God bless you and Mary. Thank you, and take care of yourself, all right?
I sure will.
Okay. Boy, oh boy, did I have a workout yesterday at the Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation. Oh my goodness, we had Isaiah, we had Jordan, we had Nick. I had them all coming in there saying, do this, do that, you better exercise this way. And I was in the pool and I was sweating. Yeah, you can sweat in the pool. I was sweating. I'm telling you what, they had me really a good workout. But you know what? You know what? It's working. And I'm feeling so much better. Thanks to Burley Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation. 1263 Bennett Avenue, Suite 2 in Burley. The number to call, and I mean this. If you don't, doggone, you're hurting yourself. 678-1191. Helping you to get back to being you. Excellent people, excellent physical therapists, hydrotherapy pool. What are you waiting for? Call today, 678-1191. Calls are welcome and appreciated. 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Also, in regards to Hillary last night, she had more of her absolutes that she is really backing and going to push if, God forbid, she becomes president. She is absolute about climate change. Now, that puts a person like me and most of my friends, most of knowledgeable people that have been meteorologists, have studied weather, like the man I had on the air yesterday. Absolutely one of the absolute best and smartest in the United States, not believing in climate change per se. Like my guest said yesterday, and he was 100% right when he mentioned that there is all kinds of climate change, and there always will be climate change, but not in the way and fashion that the Democrats and Hillary want you to believe. We are not going to all of a sudden burn up. As a matter of fact, warmer climes have produced better and safer and more healthy endeavors for people around the world. And it certainly is absolute for better crop production and more food production. For some reason, Democrats that, in my opinion, have not got out of kindergarten when it comes to understanding the basics of life, cooler temperatures to the point of almost saying cold. They want to, like, seed the universe with a colder universe. Why? What good will cold do? Cold kills. Cold kills. And cold is not going to create an environment for better living. And again, going back to agriculture, we need food. And Hillary is absolutely espousing climate change, that, oh my goodness, why we've just got to change this, we've got to change that. This woman will absolutely lead us down a path of destruction on trying to go with climate change, i.e. renewable energy with the solar and the wind. It's going to be devastating, I guarantee you. We'll have more on that debate last night in just a moment. Right now, I want to remind you about Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids. You know, I brag every day, and it's true, about the doctor, Christine Pickup. And she understands hearing. She understands sound. And she understands everything about it and what might alter or hurt your hearing. And it might be your cardiovascular system, kidney health. It might be diabetes. Might be even the medication that you're on. And it might even have something to do with depression. I'm telling you, there's so many ways and means that she can help you. Call for a hearing screening today at 312-0957. They're located across from the Minidoka Hospital Emergency Room, Mount Harrison Audiology and Hearing Aids, 312-0957. You call today. All right, call me right now, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Real quick, too, while I'm waiting for your phone calls this morning, I want to remind you about Ramsey Heating and Electric and Lennox. That's right. Ramsey Heating and Electric offering rebates on qualified Lennox home comfort systems, whether it's a gas furnace, air conditioner, a heat pump, whatever, you and your family will enjoy the comfort. All you have to do is call Ramsey's at 678-0459, Ramsey Heating and Electric and Lennox, saving you money. Another issue that came up in the debate last night, for those of you that were listening like I was, and I was writing notes on a pad just as fast as I could write them down, she mentioned the gun epidemic in this country. Now, when you mention and use the words gun epidemic in this country, she didn't isolate the problem to criminals. She didn't isolate the problem to terrorists, but it was a gun epidemic, kind of a catch-all, one-all phrase. And she went on to say something else that bothered me a little bit. Keep guns out of the hands of people that want to do harm. Now, that might be an ambiguous statement to you, but think about it. Keep guns out of the hands of people that want to do harm. How do you discern who wants to do the harm? How do you know at a gun store? How do you know at a sporting goods store? Oh, this person looks like they want to do harm, better not sell them a gun. That is totally fictional. And what I took out of that, and please call me and tell me I'm wrong, I took that keep guns out of the hands of people that want to do harm as an all-encompassing kind of an Australian gun confiscation type program. I know you're probably saying at home, Zeb, that's far-reaching, Well, think about it, though. Keep guns out of the hands of people that want to do harm. How do you know? How do you discern? You can't. And it sounds like gun control to me to the nth degree. Please give me a call and let me know what your thoughts are. There was one other thing that bothered me a little bit. No, it bothered me a lot last night. Excuse me. That would be her remark about the police and police training, police forces, and I got the feeling, here again, it's speculation on my part, I got the feeling that she would be a big advocate for a nationalized police force. Woo-hoo. Chills went down my back. I thought she was edging in that direction. And then at the end of the debate last night, Dan, would you mind handing me that fly swatter over here? This fly is absolutely bent on landing on the microphone and buzzing and saying what he wants to say this morning. And I'd like to eradicate him while I have a chance. He's over here on the papers. I'll go to the call in just a moment because now I've lost my train of thought. But we'll go to the caller. Good morning. You're on the air.
Well, you know, this is the thing, Zeb, about last night's debate. I was pretty anxious. In fact, I told my wife, I says, I don't even know if I want to watch that. And then she says, well, I'm watching it. And I says, that's fine. You know, and the reason is you know how sometimes something is so important and you're so, anxious about it that you're like watching the field goal that needs to go through the uprights that doesn't, and you don't even look. And so, okay, this is the thing. if I feel that if people out across America, people in Detroit, wherever, Michigan, Ohio, North Carolina, Virginia, coal miners, wherever, when they saw that Donald Trump was so focused on what is happening to our corporations and how they're leaving and how jobs are leaving, and he kept going back to it and kept going back to it and kept going back to financial responsibility. My company is ahead of schedule and below budget. And see, I hope that people understand that his focus is on the business of America, and running it a tight ship, and how literally unbelievably bad things are at this point, and how none of these people are business people. And so, he may not be a polished debater. I heard Dana Perino say he was on his heels all night, and I thought, well, she's a Bush person anyway. And then George W. Sr., George Sr. is voting for Hillary, and this is a fact. So I think Dana Perino really, in her heart, doesn't really want Trump to be president, because, back there in this cesspool, they want to keep things the way they've always kept them. And you and I are the ones who are getting our butt kicked.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to business and running a tight ship, you and I have no choice but to run our businesses so we can survive. And so I hope that message got out. And if it's about the economy, she said nothing that meant anything other than, like he said, it's just sound bites. It's just words. She doesn't mean a thing.
Well,
see, I think he had great moments last night, but when people are skewed in their opinions, when we hear people give us their opinion of the debate, well, I watched the thing myself. I don't need you to tell me what I saw.
Randy, I think your analogy was well done, and I think a lot of what you said absolutely is the way it is. However, I would say this. I think for Dana Perino to say what she said last night, she has a right as a pundit and an observer for a network to come up with her own kind of review. That's fine. I can accept that. But then so do I. And so do you. But I will say this, that I thought at the very end of the debate last night, I thought Hillary took a shovel and she started digging a hole, and she put herself in the hole because she went after Trump as a racist, and she also went to the gutter and started to bring up things like Trump called women pigs and that type of thing. I thought it was totally irresponsible of her to go in that direction. So did my wife, Deanne. And I just think that at that juncture, Hillary really lowered herself during that debate. Now, I will say that I think Trump missed a lot of opportunities last night to put Hillary on her heels, like you said. And I think he overlooked Benghazi. I think he overlooked Libya. I think he really overlooked more pushing on the Iran deal. I know that he overlooked a lot more aggressiveness on the emails. And one thing in particular that was not talked about last night was the Clinton Foundation and the money. And that should have been brought forward.
Oh, yeah, there's no question that he missed opportunities. But maybe by not going there and focusing, because he just kept going back to running a tight ship. He just kept going back to what he knows. And that's what we need as America. $20 trillion in debt. We are always paying way too much for things, whatever it is. Building a highway. It takes them forever, and it costs too much money. And he says, we can't do this anymore. We're broke.
Yeah.
You and I couldn't do it. These business people I do business with across this valley here don't think anything like that. And you see, we need, like he said last night, we don't need to be taxed and regulated out of business. I just think that the things that he said that about running a tight ship and the economy and jobs, I believe that anybody who watched it will see that, and that's will make them know that he is passionate about getting this financial thing in order as best as possible. because it is a mess, like you keep saying.
It is, Randy, and I appreciate your kind of overview of everything. Thank you for your call this morning.
Right.
All right, buddy. Thank you. There were some other things last night that bothered me, and my wife is in the other room. She can come in if she would get on the microphone and tell you that we mentioned this. During the first quarter of the debate, we noticed different sound qualities on Trump's mic. And due to the fact that I've been in this business now for almost 50 years, I can tell whether a mic is functioning properly or you're having the right amplification or whatever. I'll go toe-to-toe with anybody on that. And I mentioned to her that something was amiss, and sure, lo and behold, this morning we heard reports that the mic had a tendency to fade into obscurity for the listeners in the audience last night on various occasions, and it was not right. And however, it was amplified when Trump had a few allergic problems and was sniffing, for lack of better words, into the microphone. Little things like this, I thought might have leaned towards a little bit of favoritism towards Hillary. Whether or not the electronics of the situation were accidental or not, I don't know. But it seemed a little weird last night. Let's get a call in, if you would, at 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. I'd like to hear what your opinions are. While I'm waiting for your call that I know is coming, I want to remind you about Ark Animal Hospital at 750 21st Street in Hayburn. Oh, I love their slogan. I keep saying that. We have warm hearts for cold noses. Yes, they do. They've been voted Minnecacha's best veterinary hospital a number of years. And right now they're having a fundraiser for the Cassia County Canine units. All you have to do is go in and buy a paw print. Yeah, a paw print for $1. And they'll put your name on it, hang it in the hallway, and you are supporting the Cassia County Canine units for the health care of the dogs, equipment, and food. So get on in today to Ark Animal Hospital in Hayburn. Warm hearts for cold noses. Okay. Also, don't forget, on Thursdays, we have our football trivia contest at 9:12, sponsored by Denny's Restaurant. And if you answer the trivia question correctly, you will win a free Grand Slam breakfast at Denny's. That's coming up at 9:12 on Thursdays. Be sure and remember that. Denny's Restaurant, America's Diner. One thing I want to talk about real quick this morning, and I want to get your opinion on this. You know, it's great to sit here and give all the balderdash about Hillary and Trump in the first debate and everything else, but in some respects, I'm more interested in what's going to take place between Democrat Tim Kaine and GOP Mike Pence in the vice presidential debate. Now, you might say, well, why would you be that interested in them? Okay. I have watched their personalities and studied their personalities and what they've said and how they act and their demeanor and everything else. And to be very, very honest with you, I know there's going to be those in the audience that are going to go, oh, you're just so much of a GOP. No, I'm not. But when you look at the demeanor and listen to what they say, Mike Pence is an absolutely very well-spoken individual. He is someone that is absolutely deliberate, absolutely very knowledgeable about all the different debate items, and he understands what's going on, but he has a very decisive, kind of a I'm in control demeanor. And then, on the other hand, you have circus clown Tim Kaine. I've listened to this guy at various talk shows, and I've listened to him when he's being interviewed, and he's nothing more, honestly, than kind of a cheerleader without pom-poms. Now, all he can do is, yay, yay, Hillary, la, la, la. And when it comes to substance, on the issues, whether it's terror, whether it's our economy or whatever, it's always, well, Hillary this, Hillary. Wait a minute. I want to hear what they might do in the case of a real emergency or devastating event. They are, you realize, the number 2 person. How many times, using a football analogy this year already, have we seen the number 1 quarterback go down? And the number 2 man had better be ready. Had better be ready to go in very tough circumstances. And after listening to Tim Kaine, who I would term a clown looking for a circus, and Mike Pence, and trying to be really fair about it, there is no comparison. Mike Pence is a very, very educated, and I would say the word deliberate I used a moment ago is the best way to define him. Very deliberate personality. And to be honest, I wished he were the number 1 for the party for president. Let's take a look at the weather right now, and the weather is brought to you by the Urgent Cares. Riverview Urgent Care, 382 North Overland in Burley. Twin Falls Urgent Care, 2392 Addison Avenue East in Twin Falls. And Jerome Urgent Care, 133 West Avenue A in Jerome. Hey, don't forget, mark this on the calendar, please. October 5th, they're going to have a flu shot special, $15 for flu shots at all the clinics. So mark that down and be there. And don't forget, minor emergencies, major care at the Urgent Cares serving you. Right now, here's Gina with the weather.
We're looking at fairly nice weather for most of the week, but as we get into the weekend, we do have a slight chance of rain showers in the forecast. Good morning. Here is your weather forecast for this Tuesday, September 27th, and sunny skies for today. Looks like it's going to be a little bit breezy. Winds out of the northeast right around 7 miles an hour. High of 78 tonight, low of 45 tonight. Sunset's going to be at 7:22. For tomorrow, sunny skies, high of 80 with an overnight low of 52. More clouds going to be rolling in on Thursday, so we're looking at partly cloudy skies. Temperatures dropping to about 74 with an overnight low of 51. Mostly sunny and 74 for Friday, but as we're looking at the forecast right now, looks like we do have a slight chance of afternoon rain showers on Saturday, which are going to be picking up just a little bit, and a high of 65. Yesterday's high was 75. The overnight low was 40. That is your weather for Zebeth Ranch.
Oh, thank you, Gina. And the weather brought to you this hour by Urgent Cares in Burley, Riverview Urgent Care in Burley, Twin Falls Urgent Care in Twin, and the Jerome Urgent Care in Jerome. Go to their website, urgentcareofidaho.com. Check them out, and they can help you. Minor emergencies, major care. All right, you give me a call now. Come on, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. Once again, Ramsey Heating and Electric offering rebates on qualified Lennox home comfort systems, whether it's a gas furnace, air conditioner, or a heat pump. Oh, enjoy the comfort from Ramsey Heating and Electric and Lennox, saving you money. All right, let's see what else is in. You know, a sad, sad story. A tragedy in Miami. I'm sure that most of you heard that, and he was a top-notch baseball player, Jose Fernandez, great pitcher, and he was only 24 years old. Well, to give a summation, the other night, he and some of his friends in Miami, they were in a high-speed boat in the dark, racing along the shoreline of Miami, and hit an unlit jetty, and it killed all three of them. Now, a lot of sorrow, a lot of sadness. The man had absolutely the baseball world at his fingertips. He was one of the best pitchers to come along in a long, long time. But there were rumors that are becoming truth that he and his friends had been out on quite a party that night. And Jose Fernandez, for some reason that hasn't been explicitly detailed, had lost his temper and was really mad and upset over various items. And this high-speed boat in the dark, when it hit that jetty, there was no chance that anyone would be left alive. But, the drinking and the partying, they don't want to really portray that as an athlete that lost his life. And I think for all the youngsters that were looking up to him, and everybody thought he was basically a god, no, he wasn't. No, he wasn't. And for youngsters that look for hero worship, and they looked for someone to idolize, someone that at 3:30 in the morning is going at, I just don't even know the speed that boat could attain, and then hit land, and it must have been just absolutely a huge, dangerous, killing explosion. Let's really think twice as parents who our children idolize and want to be like. I know today the gene pool is a little hard to find somebody in the world of athletics that you really want your young person, boy or girl, to find, imitate, and emulate. I think in the past it was a lot easier. Whether it was the Bart Stars, the Joe Montanas, or the Jerry Wests, or whomever in the past. Oh, they had their shortcomings. They had their moments, but they weren't as publicized, I guess, as they are today. But when you see these horrendous dances in the end zone, the gyrations, the look at me attitude, our kids can find somebody better to idolize. I never will forget some of the quotations that go back to some of the best coaches that ever coached sports, and one that comes to mind is, I believe it's attributed to Vince Lombardi and another coach too, that said, once you score, act like you've been there before. In other words, why with all these silly gyrations? Why with all these absolutely insane dances that do nothing? That do nothing but make you look like me. It wasn't the team. It wasn't that block by the right guard that sprung you for a 30-yard touchdown run. But, oh, boy, look at me! And the right guard walks off the field and nobody gives him any praise. He knocked the defensive safety on his keister, but the halfback gets all the rewards and the me. There are some athletes, so when I was watching NFL football last Sunday, go into the end zone, raise their hand, walk out of the end zone, and hand the ball to the official. And I thought, that's refreshing. That's really refreshing, because it amplified to me that person is a professional. And believe me, acted like he had been there before. Calls are welcome, 436-2244, 1-866-927-4587. I know as a coach today, if I were coaching, and someone on my team went into the end zone and did these stupid, absolutely silly dances, they would have blisters on their behind from sitting on the pine. Don't forget a great big fall tire sale going on at your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. They've got a lot of their tires on sale. I'm telling you, like the Ultra Z900 for your passenger cars. Caller, I'll be right there. All-season tread, 65 to 80,000 mile warranty. Whoa, depending on your driving. Oh, my goodness sakes. You better stop in and check it out today. And along with that, the brake service and the front end alignment. You don't want to be having that vehicle pulling you over to the barrel pit or whatever and wearing off your tires. And the front end alignments, shocks and struts, the batteries, everything right there at all 7 locations serving you. Really nice people, knowledgeable people. Lane and Rupert, Dave on Blue Lakes and Twin, Mike and Buell, Mike and Jerome, the Twist family and Paul, Daniel on Pole Line in Twin Falls, and my buddy Randy on Overland in Burley, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. Caller, good morning. You're on the air.
Morning, sir.
Yes, sir.
I just lost my train of Did you ever do that?
Who is this and why are you calling?
I'm calling to say, on the debate last night, most 99.9% of your callers were right on the money. And you know, it was really quite a joke. Listen to that moderator question Trump.
Yeah.
I'm going, yeah, you're showing your colors right here. He wasn't impartial. And to the kids, that looked up to Hernandez.
Yeah.
This is a learning experience, a lesson that the parents can teach the kids.
They'd better.
Look, you get the fame, and you don't take care of it right, this is what's going to happen to you. This isn't good. And for everybody to praise people like, oh, Kaepernick, and put down Tim Tebow for standing up for what he believes, or kneeling down for what he believes.
Yes, that's right.
That's totally wrong. It is tolerance if it's in my direction.
Yep.
If you disagree with me, then you're not tolerant.
Yep.
But I can disagree with you because you got to be tolerant.
Well, I just maintain that the world of sports in general needs a great big vacuum cleaner. It needs to be cleaned up, and the personalities that are in the forefront, they also need to look in the mirror and say to themselves, I have been blessed by the good Lord above with all this talent and all this money, and I'm acting like a jerk, and I better clean up my act, right?
Right. And it starts in high school.
Yep.
When you've got a high school student that is a good athlete, he can get away with a lot more than the student that is academic.
I couldn't agree more. Doug,
it goes through college and everywhere.
I agree. I hate to cut you off because you're bringing up some good points I'd like to elaborate on, but if you'll look at your wristwatch, I got to run. and we've got to get to the news, my friend.
That's an oxymoron.
Okay, buddy. Hey, have a good day, and I'll remember that. Have a good one. We'll see you back in about 6 minutes. Zev at the Ranch, and we'll be right back. Okay, welcome back. Beautiful day outside. Man, I wished I was broadcasting out on the sun deck. It is nice out there. Welcome to Zeb at the Ranch. I'm Zeb Bell with our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations serving you, and including some of our advertisers like Western Waste Services.
From the canyons of the Snake River and all across southern Idaho, we're always at your disposal. Western Waste Services, we care about our community, our resources, and this great land. Western Waste Services is lending a hand, always at your disposal. Western Waste Services.
They are always at your disposal, and I want to brag a little bit again about that route service. Call them at 734-6969. Get on the route service. Your garbage is picked up. It's gone. It's out of there. They are the best. All you have to do is give them that jingle. They're locally owned and operated and very diligent, very professional. Call them today. Western Waste Services, 734-6969. Don't forget to our friends at Cheney Flooring and Home Design, 1228 Oakley Avenue in Burley. Look for that blue door. I'm telling you, they're there to serve you with all your home decor items, carpet and flooring, kitchen construction, whatever you need to make your house a home. Cheney Flooring and Home Design in Burley. Really, really good folks. And before we go any further, I'd like to also say thank you before we go to my guest, to our dear friend Joel Heward, his family, and his staff. They are there when you need them, and they can come to you if you need them in a severe time of need, when there's a passing of a loved one. As I almost knocked the microphone over, Hanson Mortuary, 710 6th Street in Rupert. Number to call, 436-5636. And I want to stress the fact that they always uphold the highest ethical standards with unquestioned integrity. Please call them with questions. All of us should get the pre-planning of funerals to save a lot of the stress on our families. Call 436-5636. Hanson Mortuary, 710 6th Street in Rupert. Almost knocked the whole table over. Good morning to Bill Tatro. How are you, sir? Economist extraordinaire. What's going on in your world, Bill?
Well, thank you, Zeb. I haven't heard that economist extraordinaire since I think the first month I started writing for Town Hall several years ago.
Oh, really?
And they said, we have to put a tagline on you. I know you've been an economist, you've been in radio and television for a long time, but we need just kind of that extra word. Okay, we're going to put extraordinaire. I think it's like the word expert. It means you're from out of town and you carry a briefcase. Other than that, I don't think it means anything.
I like that. Carry a briefcase. There you go. Bill, I'm going to kind of change gears a little bit with you this morning, and I'm sure, did you watch the debate last night with Hillary and our dear friend Donald?
Yes, I did, but I did it a little differently than probably the 100 million people out there did it. If you remember, and I don't know how old you are, Zeb, but when the first debate between Nixon and Kennedy was done many, many years ago, back in the 60s, the people who listened to it on radio thought that Nixon had won the debate. But now, there were several debates after, but that first one was the most significant. And, of course, he patted his chin. They said, well, he was perspiring. No, it was the lights who were hitting him. He had no makeup. Kennedy did. He had a white shirt, so he looked washed out. Kennedy had a blue shirt. And so I watched, or I should say, I should have watched the first 10, 15 minutes of the debate with my eyes shut. I listened to it as opposed to getting caught up in Donald's nuances or the stance or the body language or all the rest of that stuff. The debate, I thought that Trump had lost a lot of opportunities. I thought he missed. She gave him a lot of openings, and I thought that he just missed so much. He seemed to be on the defensive, and yet, if you talk to and listen to the polling afterwards, everybody said, many people, his supporters, and I'm going to put it right up front, I'm not a Trump fan, I'm not a Hillary fan. I will vote for Trump. Hillary, no way. I will vote for Trump. But I just thought it was Donald as Donald. He was, in a sense, and people have kind of chastised me for this, a little bit not a little bit, quite a bit inarticulate. He, instead of giving the details of saying why the economy's bad or how the economy's bad, he'll just say it's bad, it's terrible, it's this, it's that. But I just thought that it was an evening of missed opportunity for Trump. She opened up so much and gave him a lot of opportunities to bring up, what did we hear, for 10 seconds, the emails, that was it. And the experience, not once at Benghazi, not one time of the Clinton Foundation. And talking about the recovery for the last 8 years. He hit it briefly, the worst recovery that we've ever had. A president who in 8 years is the only president in history that couldn't get us to a 3% growth rate. All those particular things that I thought were opportunistic for him, he just didn't go after.
Okay, now you really laid out a lot of groundwork for a lot of discussion, and I had my notes from my first hour, and I agree with you that as far as Trump missing opportunities, he never did get into Benghazi, Libya. Really, he had a chance when the door was opened on the Iranian deal, the nuclear deal, and honestly, he closed the door when he should have put his foot in the door and really elaborated. Emails and the Clinton Foundation with the money or the lack of the proper use of the money, etc. But now, what did you think overall as far as an economist, talking about $20 trillion in debt and what their plans and future aspirations were to get this country on the right track? What about the candidates from that perspective?
Well, here's my difficulty, Zeb, and that is the kind of economist I am. I am not a Keynesian. I am an Austrian. And I know one reporter once said, oh, you were raised in the south of Austria or north of Austria? No. I'm an Austrian economist, which means I do not believe that growth, A, is built on debt. That's like building a house on sand.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not of the mind that you build your models and never change them, and that's the Keynesians. Keynesians will say, look, we're not succeeding because we haven't done enough indebtedness. We haven't done enough money printing. That's why you see Japan, 3 decades of this situation, and still faltering. And you see the aspect of Janet Yellen continuing, which Trump brought up, and he has in the last week, and I started to say, okay, now you're going where the real meat is, the Federal Reserve. And he talked about Janet Yellen, once again, missed opportunity for about 30 seconds and threw it away. The problem with both of these candidates and most politicians is that in 1913, when the bill was signed to create the Federal Reserve by Woodrow Wilson, who later said the worst thing he ever did, is the fact that regardless of what these guys' policies, either hers or his, as long as the Federal Reserve is in control, and make no mistake, Deb, the Federal Reserve controls. They control the money, they control the policies, and it's all the central banks of the world. We're going to continue on this direction. We're going to continue in this going down this rabbit hole. And I'm hoping that Donald Trump continues this attack on the Federal Reserve. But I've asked, as I asked my quote, and I say this tongue-in-cheek, dear friend John McCain, would you ever get rid of the Federal Reserve? And his comment to me was, as we're working out in a gym one time, replace it with what? And I said, we have the Treasury Department,
right,
and we had no Federal Reserve prior to 1913, and it was a pretty good system. But that's one of the issues. I'm appalled at the economics of this country and the fact that you continue to run on it, and the fact that the world is mired in negative interest rate policies. And yet, mainstream media and everybody's saying, "Man, will she or won't she raise interest rates? Will she or won't she raise interest rates?" And of course, that's not going to happen. Not with Germany and everybody else going negative. The other thing I find is fascinating in the economics of it. Trump continues to talk about. He does this a lot. Remember when he kept saying, "China devalues, China devalues, China devalues." He keeps talking about that. Well, if you pull yourself back, the biggest devaluer of currency is the United States. Since the Federal Reserve was founded in 1913, our dollar has devalued 97%. So, it's fascinating, and watching this whole thing, I watch it with many hats, as a citizen, as a voter, as an economist, as a broadcaster, as a reporter, as a columnist, etc. So it actually gives me a lot to talk about.
Well, Bill, what about the remark last night that Hillary made? And I know it's been talked about on numerous talk shows, all the pundits talk about it, etc., about her tax plan and how she wants to really, and she said it twice last night at least, I'm going to go after the wealthy, after the rich, after the entrepreneurs, and make sure they pay their fair share. My thinking is, okay, Hillary, you go after them and then see what your jobs report comes back. You're going to see a minimization of jobs in this country when you go after the entrepreneurs. Bill, am I wrong?
No, you're absolutely right, because let's go back to Walter Mondale. I always like to bring history into conversations because you can take a look at them. Walter Mondale said exactly the same thing. Democratic candidate for president said, I'm going to go after the rich. Well, somebody asked him a question. See, nobody's asked Hillary this particular question. Define the rich. Who are the rich? Can you have a number on it? Walter Mondale put his rich at $75,000. You are rich if you make $75,000. All right, that was back in, the 70s, or the 80s, I'm sorry. So here we are 30, 40 years later, 30 years later, and so let's say with inflation, the rich now are $125,000 or $150,000. That's the rich. You're making $150,000, you're rich. Well, that eliminates a whole lot of people who've got dual incomes. But, as you just said, it attacks the businessman, the entrepreneur, the person who's out there who creates jobs. And if all of a sudden you take a look, she said one thing, and this is a tax. She said last night, we've got to create a living wage. We've got to increase minimum wage. She's a $15. She is one of those that said, we got to go to $15. Now, already, Jerry Brown in California, when he signed California going to $15, he made an off-the-cuff remark. He said, well, this is stupid economically. And I think he thought his microphone was off, but it was not. Of course it's stupid. And if you take a look at various companies like McDonald's, like Starbucks, companies like that, who are going to be, and these are big chains. These aren't mom and pops. These are big chains. They're going to $15. What's Starbucks doing? They're cutting their staff. They're cutting their hours. They're reducing, and we're hearing that complaints from Starbucks workers all over the country. What's McDonald's doing, knowing they have to go to that eventually probably $15? They're putting kiosks in. They're removing people. So your comment about let's look at the job creation is right on the money. It is a recipe for absolute disaster as far as job creation. But I will say this. If you're the Bureau of Labor Statistics, those people who lose their job, you simply eliminate them from the participation pool. And if you're Janet Yellen, you say, well, they're probably on vacation, maybe down in Boca Raton or out in Scottsdale or someplace like that. We don't count them.
You know, Bill, one other thing that was said last night, and it's been said previously in some of her debates with Bernie Sanders, and I take offense at this, and maybe it's minimal to you, but I want you to talk about it. She kept referring to debt-free college, and that offends me in itself. Somebody's got to pay the piper. Somebody's got to pay the university, whether it's $50,000 or whatever the tuition rate is. Somebody's got to pay for that, and I paid for my college education. Nobody else helped me. Why are we in such a hell-bent run downhill to provide debt-free or free college to these millennials?
Well, here's the thing, Zeb, and that is that as we watched Donald Trump, and I switched back and forth between conservative and liberal stations last night, which meant going back between Fox and MSNBC, and you got people attacking Trump and people who were going with Trump and saying, well, there he goes, there's Donald, he's the same old Donald, bombastic, and all the rest of this stuff. All right, but there was the same old Hillary. Hillary is a Fabian. And let me say that I believe that most people, they look, a Fabian, what is that, the rock and roll singer of the 60s? No. Fabian society basically started back in, 100 years ago. Bill and Hillary, many of the world leaders, many of the bankers, etc., they all believe in the one world order. Mm-hmm. And they believe that socialism is making everybody equal. One of the things that you do to get that so-called one world order, to get that equality, is to start to give everything away for free. And then you get people dependent upon you. I think that we're starting to hear now as far as the black community. Think about the black community, how the dependency since the so-called, quote, Rainbow Coalition back in the 60s and 70s and even 80s came about, the dependency of the black community on government, on the Democrats. I think he hit a little bit on that last night, Trump did. But now what you're looking to do is to then bring your next group of people in dependency on the government. And that's the college students. That's the people who are saying, well, it should be free education. It should be free. All right, who's paying? Who's going to pay? Who's going to pay the salaries, the inflated salaries of the administration of the colleges? And who is going to continue to keep those? You know, and I've said this continually. We ought to shut college down for about 3 years, maybe 4 years. I know it'll hurt the football schedules, but just shut them down for 3 or 4. Don't graduate anybody. We don't need any more students into the mainstream. We don't have jobs for them. We don't need any more baristas at Starbucks or people saying welcome to Home Depot. We don't need any more living with their parents. But that's not going to be the case. We're going to continue to put kids through school, and we're going to continue to see the debt get bigger and bigger and bigger. But when you give stuff free, now all of a sudden it becomes a dependency. And then what's the most recent conversation? Most recent conversation is guaranteed income. I'm not talking Social Security. I'm not talking pension. I'm just talking about guaranteed helicopter money.
Ben Bernanke talked about it may come to helicopter money, dropping those $100, $200, $300 bills, but sending. Jimmy Carter talked about that back in the 70s. We need to send everybody, I think it was $200 or $250. Some never came to anything because people looked at it as ridiculous. But as we continue to move, that socialistic bent that Hillary Clinton has, her and Bernie Sanders had a lot in common. All you have to do to see the success of the socialistic system is go to South America. Look at Venezuela. Look at Argentina. Look at Brazil. Look at these countries, and you can see what a Bernie Sanders presidency would be. The thing that scares me about Hillary is she has that socialistic bent, but she knows that even in socialism, there's somebody who's in the control, and it's that top 0.1%. That's where Hillary is. Hillary wants to be and will be that. You combine that with her militaristic jingo that she exhibits, what we saw in Libya, what we saw in Egypt, what we saw in all these countries over in the Middle East, it scares the bejesus out of me, as they say.
You know something, you said a moment ago, something I'd like you to elaborate on. I've only got about 3 minutes left in this segment, Bill, but I want you to pursue this. When you said about closing down the universities for 3 years, I really was listening because it falls in accord with what I've said for a long time, that we're pushing colleges and universities way too much and not the trade schools, the electricians, the plumbers, etc., that we desperately need. And by doing what you said, it would really, I think, increase the jobs and thus be a big input to the economy.
There's no question about that. I spend a lot of time in northern Arizona, and there's Northern Arizona University. I met a young lady who is a philosophy major, and she's working at the local Staples. And I said, anthropology major. I get it right. Anthropology major. She graduated #1 in her class out of 19 people. Now, you may say, well, what's the significance? The significance is, I said, well, why are you still in northern Arizona? She says, Mr. Tatro, I've been in Europe. I went to New York. I interviewed in L.A. I went to Asia. There are no jobs. I said, well, and they graduated 19 from Northern Arizona University. That means that there are hundreds and hundreds that are graduating in anthropology. What was your loan? She said, I'm in debt about $112,000. I said, so you have a degree that is, in essence, worthless, and you're working here, thank goodness you have a job, and you're mired in debt. And that's the problem. There's no need for these. But what we do need is we need the plumbers, we need the electricians, we need the individuals. If you're going to have you're going to work on infrastructure, you can't take a 60 or 50 or 40-year-old person who's worked behind a desk and say, okay, give them a jackhammer. They're going to go work in infrastructure. It just doesn't work that way.
You know, after you watch the debate, quick answer on this, Bill, after you watch the debate, listen to the debate, etc., really, what happened last night that might change the scope of this coming election?
Absolutely nothing.
Short answer.
I think that if you were a Trump fan before, you liked his looks, his things, and like that. If you were a Hillary fan, see, I'm not convinced that, and I'll say this very quickly, that there's that many independent people. I truly believe, put to the wall, most people at this point in time know exactly who they're going to vote for. If this is one of the most, with due respect to Abraham Lincoln and Stephen A. Douglas, the most divisive campaign in history, but they have to forget the Civil War. I would say that most people at this point in time, when you really push them, they say, is it Hillary or is it Donald? And they'll say, yeah, it's Hillary or it's Donald. I think most people have made it. To me, between now and November, unless something significant, really significant happens, even if Hillary were to have a health collapse, I would say, they say, well, it's simple. She'll get better and she'll go on. There have been many presidents. John F. Kennedy, president, he had a bad back, etc. There's different people who've had health issues. Not a problem. I think that everything is already set in stone. I think if we could have the election tomorrow, and the winner would be declared.
You know, Bill, you've got to come back. You got to promise to come back in the very near future before the election, and I will call him what I think he is, economist extraordinaire, Bill Tatro. Thank you so much for being on the program this morning.
My pleasure, Zeb, and of course I will be back.
All right, thank you so much. I really appreciate that man's knowledge, and he's really a progressive thinker on what's going on in politics and also the economy, and I favor him as one of my favorite guests on this program. Bill Tatro, thank you very much. Oh, my goodness, I got to pay some bills here real quick, and I've got to remind everybody about our dear friends over at Let's Ride, 270 Highway 24 between Rupert and the world. Oh, my goodness, they're open Mondays through Saturdays, 9 to 6. And, you know, I've been telling you, they've got a great closeout right now. Low prices on the 2016 four-wheelers and side-by-sides because the new 17 models are coming in. Well, you'd better get over there and enjoy the savings. And boy, have they got a great big showroom just chock full of what you're looking for. And all the accessories, too. My goodness. And if something needs to be repaired, what a service department. Really good people at Let's Ride, 270 Highway 24 over by Rupert, where the fun is sold. Good folks. Oh, my goodness sakes. Let's see what else have we got cooking here. I want to remind you, too, about our friends at Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More. And the other day, a gentleman called me, and he said, well, you were mentioning recliners, and that you had bought a recliner from Lee's Furniture. I said, yes, not one, but two. One for Deanne, one for me. And I said, you got to go in there and try them on. They've got a great selection of recliners. They've even got those lift recliners that can kind of tip forward and help you up. They've got them all for you right there for you to go in, try one on, see if it fits. They don't all fit the same. You should know that. And find one that just feels good for you. At Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More. Check out all the bedroom sets, the dining room sets, everything for you and your home and the beautification of your home. Lee's Furniture, Floors, and More at 459 Overland in Burley. Really, really good folks. In just a moment, we're going to have our next guest on the phone, and with the Pacific Legal Foundation. And I'll tell you what, farmers and ranchers, if you got something you have to do, put it off and be listening, because we're going to be talking about the EPA and more of a regulation on puddles and dry land. Don't miss it. It's going to be great. Just a minute with attorney Damian Schiff. By the way, I also want to remind you, too, about our friends at Cameron and Siemens Insurance, Highway 24 in Rupert. Oh, my goodness, life insurance, health insurance, retirement planning, employee benefits, all of this and more. Ready to serve you. They are dedicated and responsive to your needs. All you have to do is call the number, make an appointment, 436-4424. Cameron and Siemens Insurance, Highway 24 in Rupert. Really good folks. Wow, I can't wait to get into this discussion this morning by a gentleman that absolutely knows what's going on. He is an attorney with the Pacific Legal Foundation. I've got a lot of respect for all of those folks. Good morning to Damian Schiff. How are you, sir?
Doing fine. Thank you very much for having me on the show again.
You know, I appreciate you coming on, Damian, because you are going to be talking about a subject, quite frankly, that is going to make me madder than a whole bunch of Indians coming off the hill on John Wayne movie when you talk about the EPA and the encroachment onto private property. Give us a little background as to what we're going to be talking about this morning.
Well, we'll be talking about an issue that I'm sure many of your guests are familiar with, and that is the abuse of private property owners and farmers by EPA and the Army Corps of Engineers under the Clean Water Act, abuses that have just been highlighted by a new report that the Senate Committee on the Environment and Public Works issued last week that really calls out these agencies on all the bad things they've been doing.
Now, this report that calls out these agencies, to use your words, on all the bad things that they've been doing, be more explanatory about what kinds of bad things.
I'll give a great example. It was a case that the report highlighted that Pacific Legal Foundation is litigating right now, and it concerns a farmer here in Northern California who purchased a a farm field a few years ago and proceeded to try to plant a winter wheat crop on the property. While in the process of doing that, the Army Corps swooped down and issued him a cease and desist order and said that his normal farming activities constituted the discharge of a pollutant into navigable waters. Now, what makes the case particularly outrageous is that even though our client was just using a normal farming plow, normal farming activities, and notwithstanding the fact that the Clean Water Act expressly exempts normal farming activities from the Act's regulation, the Corps said those exemptions don't apply because your plow is effectively creating mini mountain ranges, such that when the bits of dirt fall from the top of the furrow down into the base, that is a discharge of a pollutant into the wetlands that are on your property, and therefore you're liable for violating the Clean Water Act.
This is almost insane and totally absurd. So what is going to happen? I guess I'm kind of jumping ahead here a little bit, but I want to ask you, what's going to happen to agriculture in general in this country if this idiocy is allowed to prevail itself?
Well, it would make EPA and the Corps the federal regulators for agriculture, because essentially they're now saying, we don't care that the Clean Water Act expressly exempts all of these normal farming activities. We don't care if these activities have no impact on the environment. Nevertheless, we're going to demand that before you can continue with the same farming that you've been doing for generations, you need to get a permit from us.
Now, Damien, when you read that to us about the many mountain ranges causing uplands and drylands from creating an effect of plowing, surely when you heard this the first time, you must have almost died laughing.
Unfortunately, it wasn't so much laughter as shock, because it gets even worse. The lawsuit that we filed on behalf of our client challenged the cease and desist order that the Army Corps issued. And our argument was that you can't just issue these orders out of the blue without giving the property owner a chance to contest the order, to provide contrary evidence, or to even give him notice. And what was outrageous is that this mini mountain range allegation came out of a retaliatory action that the Corps then filed. So because we filed our lawsuit challenging the cease and desist order, the Corps filed right back and filed its own enforcement action seeking tens of thousands of dollars in penalties and injunctive relief and all sorts of bad things against our client, simply because he had the desire to vindicate his rights by challenging the Corps' authority.
What about, and I was reading some of the updated material that was sent from your office on this EPA disaster, if it's allowed to go in force. Changing from one agricultural commodity constitutes a new use that eliminates the exemption. Wait a minute. If they plant alfalfa one year and the next year they plant corn, they can't do that?
That is, unfortunately, again, not surprisingly, is the view that the Corps and EPA have taken of a different exemption in the Clean Water Act, which has been around for a long time. It's called the prior converted cropland exemption. And basically what this says is that if you've been farming your land for a long, long time, it doesn't matter if in a different world you stopped farming, your land might revert to wetlands. We're going to ignore that fact, and you can continue your normal farming practices without having to get a wetlands permit. Well, that exemption, the Corps and EPA are trying to narrow, and the way they're doing it is exactly as you suggested, which is you can keep on doing the precise same thing you were doing, but the moment you change your activity, certainly if you change it to a non-agricultural use, but even if you change it just to a different type of agricultural use, say from row crops to tree crops, or back the other way, you're still going to then fall out of that exemption, and you need to get a permit.
Now, I'm sitting here I'm gripping the table with my knuckles white because this is completely insane. And the last part of this study, puddles, tire ruts, sheet flow, and standing water can all be renamed disturbed wetlands? Oh, come on, Damien. What's going on here?
unfortunately, again, it just shows the agencies are out of control. A great example was a case that we litigated on behalf of a retired husband and wife couple out of New Mexico. They purchased some land. They had their family home on it, and unfortunately, the prior owners had let it go to seed a little bit, and so there was a lot of trash on the property. So our client decided, okay, well, I'll get out some equipment and I'll remove the trash and take it, haul it off-site, and clean up the area. Well, in doing that, the Army Corps then contended that our client had violated the Clean Water Act because he had removed the trash through a dry arroyo. And the Corps called this arroyo a water of the United States. Never mind the fact that the arroyo only contains water maybe one day a year and was some 20, 25 miles away from the nearest navigable water. Nevertheless, the Corps said, even if it's effectively sheet flow, we still think that it counts as a river and therefore regulated. And that was unfortunately not an isolated instance, that both agencies are very keen on expanding their authority to the maximum extent possible.
Now, Damien, let me ask you this question. Last week here in this area, we had a real rainfall. I mean, it came down in buckets for a couple of days. My roping arena was absolutely underwater, and I had to divert some of the water out of there so it would dry up. Are you saying that by doing such, I would be against the EPA regulations and possibly subject to a fine?
Unfortunately, Zeb, the problem is nowadays nobody knows because the agencies rely upon the uncertainty to their advantage. Now, if you ask them today, I'm sure they would say, "Oh no, of course not. That's not regulated." But of course, the onus is always on the landowner, and the risk is always on the landowner to do something without the agency's authority. Another great example is a case that we just won, successfully settled out of Wyoming, concerning a stock pond.
Mm-hmm.
Our client had purchased property, had a few cattle and had a few horses on it, and decided, well, you know, I'm going to build a stock pond to provide a watering source for my livestock, and also to improve the water quality of the stream that runs through it. Notwithstanding the fact that the Clean Water Act expressly exempts stock pond construction from the Clean Water Act, EPA and the Corps came down on our client, issued him a compliance order, and said, this exemption doesn't apply because you're not really doing it for your livestock. You're just doing it for your own aesthetic pleasure. And, of course, our client said that's ridiculous. It doesn't matter. The point is that it is a stock pond. We filed suit, and EPA ultimately retreated and allowed our client to keep his stock pond. But that's an example, again, where even if the statute and the regulations say expressly that what you're doing is legal, that isn't much guarantee because the agencies are continuing to read those exemptions narrowly and may surprise anybody with a cease and desist order or a compliance order.
Yeah, Damien, on that case you were referring to, of course, that was, I believe, the Andy Johnson case over in Fort Bridger, Wyoming. And I knew Andy and had him on my program, and I understand that he had applied for all the state permits in Wyoming, and he thought everything was copacetic with the state of Wyoming. And then the EPA came in like a bunch of thugs and punks, and wasn't the fine that they were going to try to level on him something as enormous as like $75,000 a day?
It was exactly. That is in part why the agencies have so much leverage, because if you are issued a compliance order by EPA, that is the statutory liability that you now are at risk of, $75,000 a day. And with Andy Johnson's case, you're absolutely right. It's not as if he just decided one day, I'm just going to head and build something without any permission whatsoever. To the contrary, he went through the state process. He obtained a stock pond permit from Wyoming and proceeded to build his stock pond legally in accordance with what the state directed. Even going to all those lengths, he still was targeted by EPA, and it took a lawsuit filed on his behalf by Pacific Legal Foundation to finally get EPA to back down and let him keep his stock pond.
Now, Damien, I got to ask you, and obviously a question that probably a lot of people are thinking of, how? how is the EPA going to find out about a tire rut that might have water in it, or a puddle that little Johnny has dug in the back orchard to float a boat in, or me taking the water out of my arena? What do? Have eyes in the sky, or people driving around just trying to nail somebody on an EPA fine?
It can be, unfortunately, all of the above. Oftentimes, it's a disgruntled neighbor who provides information to the EPA. Oftentimes, it's just aerial photography. Also, frankly, the reality is that EPA and Corps agents, and generally with the federal government, there isn't the same requirement for obtaining a warrant to investigate property as there is for a lot of other criminal investigations. So if it's just a civil enforcement matter, the federal government has a lot more authority than it would if it were a criminal matter. And so for all of those reasons, it's very easy for agencies to obtain information that can then be the basis for an enforcement action. And the bottom line is that we were talking about compliance orders. Well, the statute itself says that EPA can issue a compliance order based upon any information available to it. That's a direct quote from the statute. So the bar is already set very, very low, and therefore there isn't really much evidence that the EPA even needs to issue one of these orders that, again, carries with it tens of thousands of dollars of civil penalty liability.
You know, Damien, to me this is almost laughable, like a Saturday morning cartoon. The EPA founded upon nothing more than assumed powers. That's all they have is assumed powers. And now they're treated as if there's some bronze god up on a hilltop. Why? Why are we giving them credence? Why don't we really run them out of Dodge City? And why aren't our politicians standing up to them?
I think the main problem, Zeb, is that the EPA and the Corps have taken advantage over a long time of the general public sentiment that we like clean water, we like clean air, we don't like to needlessly destroy the environment. And so they take advantage of that goodwill and use it as justification for things that have nothing to do with any of those values, but simply end up beating up on the little guy. Now, why are the politicians not acting? Well, in part because I think many of them turned a blind eye to these abuses, and that circles back to how we started the discussion with the report issued by the Senate committee last week on these abuses. The purpose of that report is directed to the half dozen to a dozen or so senators who earlier this year went on record saying, you know, we think that there's a problem with the Clean Water Act, but we're willing to give the agencies a chance to mend their ways. If they don't, then we'll support some sort of legislative change. And I think the reason for this report is to show these particular senators that the agencies aren't changing their way, and that if they want to stop the abuses that the agencies are perpetrating, the senators and Congress generally has to act.
Now, what about the clarity? You kind of touched on this a few moments ago, but what about the clarity as to how do we know the ins, outs, the wrongs, the rights of this situation? Is it going to be published? Is it going to be definitive? I mean, what's going to happen here?
Clarity is the big question. Now, clarity can go both ways. As one could say, well, a clear rule would be to say that EPA has control over everything. And I think ultimately that's how the agencies are positioning themselves. But even the Supreme Court, which has addressed the Clean Water Act a couple of times in the last few years, has said in its opinions that the scope of the Clean Water Act is notoriously unclear, that the burdens it imposes raises serious concerns, not just as a policy matter, but also as a constitutional matter for due process. And so the question is, clarity, yes, it is important, but even more important than clarity is ensuring that these agencies administer their statutes in a way that respects the constitutional rights of American citizens.
Now, we have seen other cases in the past. I kind of have seen this building and building over the years, all the way from a farmer that ran over a kangaroo rat in California and they shut his farm down, to the Andy Johnson story and others. But Damien, agriculture right now is suspect by all these environmentalists and all the people that want to shut it down. Where is our food going to come from if they put a heavy-handed thumbs down on agriculture in this country?
I don't know where the food's going to come from, and it's making that connection, Zeb, which I think is so essential, because most people who are not farmers, who obtain their food from the local supermarket, sometimes fail to make the connection between overzealous environmental regulation and food supply. And until that connection is made clear in the general public, we're going to have this disconnect, that people don't realize that you can't have this type of out-of-control government regulation and at the same time ensure a valuable and healthful food supply for the nation.
What about one last question here, and I've got 1,000 questions for you. You're very articulate on this matter. What about the Supreme Court, if it goes that far, disavowing the private property rights of American citizens?
As I'm sure your listeners are aware, there's a big question mark right now on the Supreme Court because we only have 8 justices. Justice Scalia, who traditionally was a reliable vote for private property rights, his death has really turned things upside down to some extent. I don't want to be too extreme because the reality is sometimes the Supremes rule the right way, even those justices who are a little more liberal. For example, PLF earlier this year had another Clean Water Act victory in the Supreme Court called Army Corps of Engineers versus the Hawks Company. And in that case, it was 8-0 in favor of our client. A few years prior, we had another victory against EPA, Sackett versus EPA. That was 9-0. And so, in some cases, I think you can even convince the more liberal justices that what's going on here makes no sense. But there are close cases. And on those close cases, it really depends upon who that 9th justice will be, and that really is anybody's guess.
One last thought. What can my audience, what can my listeners do? What should they be doing? What can we do to stop this insanity?
I say the number one thing is educate friends, family, colleagues, associates about the reality of the connection between strong protection of private property rights and protecting our society. You can't have one without the other. For example, we were just talking about agriculture. You can't simply say we're going to regulate the environment and who cares about private property rights and at the same time expect that you'll have a reliable food supply. It's all connected. You've got to protect private property rights. You've got to educate your friends and family about how crucial that is.
I really want to say thank you, Damien. You did an outstanding job with the Pacific Legal Foundation, Damien Schiff. Damien, if people want to follow this story and what you're doing with the Pacific Legal Foundation, please tell us how.
They can simply go to our website, pacificlegal.org. We've got a blog. We've got a lot of materials. We've got a lot of discussion of the cases, videos, a great way to educate oneself about what's going on, to educate friends and family. We're just talking about the issues that really oftentimes get lost in the mainstream media that are important to educate oneself about how crucial the protection of our liberties in courts throughout the country is.
I appreciate you. Damien, come back soon, please. We'll have an update on this story. Damien Schiff with the Pacific Legal Foundation, thank you and God bless.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Wow. I mean, regulating puddles and tire tracks on your property after a rainfall? This is insane, and we're going to follow up on this much more in the distant future, believe me. We've got to get a weather forecast on here real quick. I'm running out of time, and the weather brought to you this hour by Pope Phillips, Oaks, Goodwin and Company CPAs. These are people that know. These are people that can help you, whether you're starting a business or you have a partnership or a corporation, whether you're an agricultural-based business, they can help you. They will help you. Curtis Pope, Todd Phillips, Rob Oakes, Mitch Goodwin, Heather Daly, and Lyden Crane. They have been providing accounting services to the Mini-Cash area for well over 50 years. 2 offices to serve you, 1710 Overland in Burley and 620 5th Street in Rupert. Remember and give them a call. They can help you. Pope Phillips, Oaks, Goodwin, and Company. Right now, here's Gina with the weather.
We're looking at fairly nice weather for most of the week, but as we get into the weekend, we do have a slight chance of rain showers in the forecast. Good morning. Here is your weather forecast for this Tuesday, September 27th, and sunny skies for today. Looks like it's going to be a little bit breezy. Winds out of the northeast right around 7 miles an hour. High of 78 tonight, low of 45 tonight. Sunset's going to be at 7:22. For tomorrow, sunny skies, high of 80 with an overnight low of 52. More clouds going to be rolling in on Thursday, so we're looking at partly cloudy skies. Temperatures dropping to about 74 with an overnight low of 51. Mostly sunny and 74 for Friday, but as we're looking at the forecast right now, looks like we do have a slight chance of afternoon rain showers on Saturday, which are going to be picking up just a little bit, and a high of 65. Yesterday's high was 75. The overnight low was 40. That is your weather for Zebeth Ranch.
I'll tell you, Gina, thank you very much. And again, we want to say thank you to Pope Phillips Oaks Goodwin and Company CPAs, always serving people in the agricultural industry, of course, all other industries also serving you in manufacturing, food production and services, and construction. They know how to help you. The best of CPAs, Pope Phillips Oaks Goodwin and Company. Holy smokes, almost out of time, and I want to remind you, too, about my dear friend Gary Shoresman and his books. He's got a litany of books, about 14, 15 books that he's written. What an outstanding author and organizer of all the historical data and facts, and what's happened here in Magic Valley, and all of his books available over at the bookstore in Rupert. Stop in, and you will not be disappointed. This man really knows how to draw from the past and put it out for you right here today as to what happened and how proud we should be of our heritage. Gary Shoresman, excellent books at the bookstore in Rupert. Also, I want to say thank you very much to our friend Scott Gano. Gano Landscaping and Sprinkler Service, 336 South, 450 West of Paul. The number to call, 431-8733. You need trees pruned? Better hurry and get it done. Need a new lawn seeded or sod installed? Better hurry and get it done. And if you're thinking about putting in a sprinkler system, you better hurry and get it done, or revamping the old one, because the cold weather is coming. Call them right now today at 431-8733. Gano Landscaping and Sprinkler Service. What have we got coming up for the rest of the morning? Well, next hour we've got Dr. History, and he's scaring me because he hasn't walked in the door yet. And then at 10:30 we're going to talk more about energy, or the lack of, with the person I consider to be the number one energy expert. The dog's barking. Here comes Dr. History. And that's, of course, Marita Noon at 10:30. So we got a lot of things coming up this next hour you don't want to miss. Remember the Senior Junction Pumpkin Function, frightfully wonderful, October 27th. We're going to be doing a remote broadcast over there. There's going to be a costume contest, and there's going to be a delicious, absolutely ghoulishly delicious breakfast from 7 till 10 in the morning, and they're selling crepe candy for just 50 cents a bag. This is really something to see. You got to check it out. T-shirts for $15, and all the net proceeds go to the Meals on Wheels. So don't forget, October 27th, the Senior Junction Pumpkin Function. Celebrating Halloween. Going to be a lot of fun. These are wonderful people over there, too. We are going to send it back over to Old Wheels, and he's going to play a little music for us as we go up to the CBS News at the top of the hour, and then walking through the door with all of his radiant glory, Dr. History will be coming up in a few minutes. Stay tuned. Well, man, I guess I better turn the mic on and say good morning for hour number 3 as we're ready to rock and roll with the next segment. Good morning, Zebeth Ranch. I'm Zeb Bell with our major sponsor, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. All 7 locations serving you, along with some of our great advertisers like Western Way Services, always at your disposal. And before we get to Dr. History, I want to remind you too quickly about our dear friends Ramsey Heating and Electric, offering rebates on qualified Lennox home comfort systems. Whether it's a gas furnace, an air conditioner, or a heat pump, you and your family will enjoy the comfort. Absolutely. All you have to do is just give them a call at 678-0459 and learn how Ramsey Heating and Electric and Lennox can save you money. And let's see, what else have I got to do here real quick? I'm going to get right into it because I know he's got a full plate for us today, and that's, of course, our dear friend Dr. History, brought to you by Minnecasia Sales. Oh, my goodness, 1321 East Main Street in Burley, right across from the airport. Number to call, 878-2091. Zach and the crew, all your lumber, all your shingles, all your upgrade of your windows with the Western Windows. Yes, save on your heating bills this winter with Western Windows from Minnecasia Sales, 1321 East Main Street in Burley. And they bring you Dr. History, and he's here with us in the studio. And good morning, Mr. Waterman.
Where'd you come up with that?
Our discussion.
Okay. Good morning, Zeb. How you doing today?
I'm great. Hey, listen, man, what's cooking in your world?
Well, before we start, I want to just give a kind of a hello and a thank you to Michael, Terry, Steve, Don, Joshua, Dave, Jimmy, Andrew. These guys have sent me comments on the webpage. They've gone to the webpage and listened to the stories, and I appreciate their comments. And
really?
So, we're on iTunes, for about the last 6 months, and on the Internet for about the last 2.5 years. And so I appreciate those people. And, again, if they want to make comments, just go to the webpage, dr-history.com, and there's a place where you can make comments about the shows. And I've had them suggest topics and straighten me out on a few things too. So anyway, those are just some of the people that have written comments, and I just want to thank you.
There you go. That's nice of you to say that.
So anyway.
Okay, so now what part of history are we going to jump into today? Is it going to be the mountain men? Is it going to be the cattle rustlers? Is it going to be somebody with a stagecoach? What's happening?
Okay, well, you hit it on the last one. When you think of the Old West, okay, there's images that come to your mind. A cowboy, an Indian, a mountain man, the Oregon Trail, but I bet a wagon, a stagecoach, is one of the things that undoubtedly is Old West.
Oh, yeah.
And as you picture that, you picture 4, 6 horse, maybe even an 8-horse team pulling a wagon.
Yeah, but there's a lot of things that were fallacies about that, too.
Yeah. So, and you picture also a guy sitting up on top with the reins in his hands, cowboy hat, leaning forward, getting those horses going. The guy sitting next to him with a shotgun, ready to shoot anybody that comes out.
Yeah, the Old West, Wells Fargo.
Yes. Okay, so I'm going to disrupt that image just a little bit.
Okay, here we go.
Okay, there was a lot of characters in the Old West that became well known, and this story, I'm going to stick my neck out. I'm going to bet nobody has heard of this person.
Okay,
but every time I do that, somebody will write and say, hey, we know about that person.
Yeah.
So anyway, the stories of some were embellished in these dime novels and newspaper reports, which created heroes and almost mythical figures who are now legends. Now, Mary Fields.
Never heard of her.
Also known as Black Mary and Stagecoach Mary. Okay. And she never gained any fame outside of the region of Cascade, which is a farming and ranching community on the prairie of central Montana. Familiar with that at all?
I know where Cascade, Montana is.
Okay, that's where we're talking.
Yeah.
Must be kind of a small town, I'm guessing. So, Mary Fields, that's our hero for today.
Good old Mary.
Mary was not a Westerner by birth. She was born a slave on a plantation in Hickman County, Tennessee in 1832, almost 100 years ago, during the presidency of Andy Jackson.
Oh, wait a minute, she was born in 1832?
1832.
That's more than 100 years ago.
Oh, that is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Whoops.
Boy, I tell you,
200.
You're one sharp cookie.
Okay. That's why I've got you here to... But anyway, she grew up an orphan. Never received a formal education, lived by her wits and her strength. She never married, had no children.
Okay, never mind. Keep
All right,
going.
Here we go. So now, as a child, she was a playmate and a friend of the plantation owner's daughter.
Yeah.
Her name was Dolly,
I see.
who became a Catholic nun in Toledo, Ohio.
That's not Dolly Parton.
No. Now, after Mary became a free woman after the Emancipation Proclamation, issued, of course, by President Abraham Lincoln in 1863, she went to Toledo to see her childhood friend, who had actually changed her name to Mother Amadeus. Mm-hmm. Okay, because that's what they did. So the nun, Mother Amadeus, her friend, found a job for Mary at a place called the Ursuline Catholic Convent.
Oh, my.
All right?
Okay.
Now, there was a strong bond between Mary and Mother Amadeus, who was actually 14 years younger than Black Mary, or Stagecoach Mary. Now, at the convent, Mary found security, a family, a sense of belonging. She was already a grown woman and actually kind of big. She stood 6 feet tall, weighed about 200 pounds. She was strong as an ox, good worker, but she had learned a few things not so good. She learned how to cuss and was known to have a short temper. Mary was also a hard drinker. She had learned to be tough, and she knew how to fight. She smoked a pipe and homemade cigars that reportedly smelled awful.
One of those petite little gals.
Yes. Now, I'm going to show you a picture here, Zeb.
Oh, boy.
And you
Hold on just a minute.
You tell me what you think.
Oh, hand me that book. My goodness. Just a minute. I got to see this. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, woo, you don't want to tangle with Mary. Holy cow. I mean, boy, she... yes, she could.
Yeah. I mean, she's standing there with a gun in her hands and a dog at her feet. And yeah. So, well, this might be...
There really isn't too much feminine about her.
Not a lot. We'll get into that a little more.
Okay, hang on.
All right, we'll take a break.
Whoa, boy, we better save the day with talking to Zach and the crew over at Minnecasia Sales, 1321 East Main Street in Burley, right across from the airport. Zach and the whole crew over there to serve you. We have been blessed by having them on this program for a long, long time, and they've got all your lumber packages. Zach was on the program with us on the phone a couple of weeks ago. And right now, think about energy saving with the Western windows and upgrade those windows and save on your heating and cooling bills. I'm telling you, Zach and the rest of the outfit can help you. And oh, by the way, too, they've got all the Tartar Farm and Ranch gates and panels ready for you. All you have to do is stop in and see them today. Easy to find, very nice to work with. Minnecasia Sales, 1321 East Main Street in Burley. And now back to, you sure that person's a woman? Here's Dr. History with Black Mary.
Black Mary, Stagecoach Mary. Okay, so here we are.
Okay.
She's working at the convent with her good friend Mother Amadeus. Now, at this time, she's actually about 52 years old.
Really?
Yeah, because she was born in 1832. So,
okay.
But Mother Amadeus and the other sisters apparently tolerated Mary Phil's lifestyle. But in 1884, Mother Amadeus and 5 other sisters were sent to Montana at the request of Jesuits to establish mission schools on the Cheyenne, Crow, Blackfoot, and Gross Venture Cinnabon Reservation in central and eastern Montana.
Ah, okay.
Okay. Right. Now, and again, this is near present-day Cascade, Montana.
Right.
But Mother Amadeus became ill with pneumonia while working to establish schools at a place called St. Peter's Mission, which was founded in 1845. Now, Father Damiani at St. Peter's became very concerned about her health and notified the Mother Superior at the Ursuline Convent in Toledo. She came west and brought Mary with her. So now Mary's in Montana, and she nursed Mother Amadeus back to health.
Oh, good for her.
Kept her from dying.
Yep.
So Mother Amadeus arranged for Mary to work at St. Peter's Mission, and she was freighting supplies, working in the laundry, chopping wood, raising chickens, and doing all sorts of odd jobs, which was pretty typical for, a pioneer woman. But wherever she went, Mary was armed with at least one pistol.
Really?
She supposedly...
In a convent?
Yeah, well, you never can tell who's going to visit, but she supposedly received $9 a month in wages. Now, one story tells of another hired hand at the mission who received only $7 a month. Well, one day in 1894, the hired hand supposedly confronted Mary and asked her why she was worth more money than he was.
For $2.
For $2.
Yeah.
He also complained to the bishop and made complaints in public about what he thought was an injustice. She's getting more than he was.
I see.
Well, one day Mary saw the dissatisfied hired hand cleaning an outhouse at the mission.
Oh, this could get nasty.
Well, she decided to shoot him and dump his body into the outhouse.
Really?
Yeah, she saw him there.
In a convent.
Well, maybe outside. I don't know. Okay. Yeah. But anyway, so she pulled up her gun. She fired. She missed. The man fired back, and both emptied their revolvers. Mary was not hit, but the hired man was hit in the posterior part of his body. When one of her bullets bounced off the mission stone wall.
So it was a ricochet shot that got him in the
derriere.
Yeah.
Now other bullet holes, put holes in the bishop's laundry, which hung on a nearby clothesline.
Oh, they were shooting up the place.
Oh, yeah, and really good shots.
Yeah,
right?
not really.
So anyway, the bishop got a little mad about this.
Well, can you imagine that?
So, one of his guys was shot and his underwear was full of holes. So the bishop decided it was time for Mary and her short temper to leave. Now, he also did not like her cussing and her drinking, nor did he believe she set a good example for the Indian children being schooled at the mission.
At the convent.
Yeah. And I can kind of see his point.
Oh, yeah.
So, anyway, the bishop told Mother Amadeus to send Mary away from the mission. Well, she did, but she quietly financed the opening of a cafe in the town of Cascade.
Okay.
So she opened up a little cafe.
And she was going to serve food.
Yeah. But Mary Fields could not make a profit because she would feed the hungry whether they could pay or not, and the business failed.
Oh, she was a good old gal.
She was. She had a big heart.
Yeah.
Anyway,
and a six-shooter.
And a six-shooter and a rifle. But Mother Amadeus then asked the government to give Mary Fields the mail route that served the mission. So, in 1895, now she's about 60-something, she was hired as the U.S. Mail coach driver for the Cascade County region.
She drove a stagecoach?
Yeah, a 17-mile route between Cascade and what they called St. Peter's Mission.
Okay.
So she reportedly was the first black person hired by the Postal Service in America to carry the U.S. mail.
Holy cow. So are we going to have a stamp named after her?
We really should.
Yeah.
She was a brave lady.
She'll shoot you going to the outhouse.
Yeah. So, anyway, for 8 years, she drove the mail coach pulled by her mule, one mule, named Moses. Moses the mule.
He parted the water.
Okay. Well, now, according to most accounts, she never missed a day on the job. She dressed in a man's hat and coat and carried a shotgun. She traversed the route in good and bad weather, often smoking a big old cigar. Everyone knew her and gave her the name Stagecoach Mary. Now, at age 70, she retired from the post office.
Really?
70 years old.
70 years old.
So,
my goodness.
I think she lived that long because of her smoking and drinking.
Because of a great pension, too.
Yeah. So here we are. It's 1903. She was 71. Mary Fields decided to open her own laundry business in Cascade. Now, tradition has it that everyone in town respected her and paid her bill, all except one man.
Oh, here we go.
One day, the man picked up his laundry, but did not pay.
I see.
Okay, later in the day, she found the man drinking in a local saloon. Cascade saloons were for men only, but the mayor of Cascade had given Mary Fields permission to patronize the saloons in the town.
As big as she is, who's going to tell her no?
Yeah, I'm thinking that mayor was very insightful.
Smart man.
Yeah, so when she saw the customer who failed to pay his bill standing at the bar, she walked over to him, knocked him flat with one punch. She then told everyone in the bar his laundry bill was paid.
I see.
With one good, solid punch. So, anyway, we get to 1912. Her laundry burned down.
Now, wait a minute. 1912. She's got to be close to 80.
Yeah.
Holy
she was
cow.
In 1903, she was 71. So, 1912, she's about 84?
My goodness sakes.
But her laundry burned down, and neighbors and friends actually pitched in. They rebuilt it for her. Now, about that time, she became friends with a young boy whose father owned a ranch outside of Helena. The boy, born in Helena.
Have you been to Montana?
In 1901, and later became the well-known Hollywood actor Gary Cooper.
No.
So she knew Gary Cooper.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
And he remembered her. In fact, in later years, he spoke and wrote fondly of Stagecoach Mary, after she had passed away, so they had become friends at some point.
Oh, my goodness.
So, anyway, Mary Field's death came on December 5th, 1914 in Cascade. She was buried in Hillside Cemetery, located on a hill above St. Peter's Mission, where she had gained the reputation of being a strong woman who beat the odds on the frontier.
And she beat everybody else, too.
And she beat whoever got in her way. But, here's, if somebody's heard of this lady, I want you to get on my webpage and tell me, because, and maybe you know more than I do about this lady, but kind of a fascinating story.
You were talking about stagecoaches, though. And, Deanne, could you come in the office for just a minute? I'd appreciate it. I'm going to have her grab something to show you while we're on the air, and you can discuss it. You talk about stagecoaches. Have you ever been on and ridden a stagecoach?
I never have.
All right. Deanne, honey, would you grab that picture right there of that Wells Fargo stagecoach down on the bottom? Right there at the bottom, right hand, up on the wall, Deanne. Right over there. Yeah, grab that. Hand that to Dr. History. I've had this story on the air before in Oklahoma City. About 10 years ago, I was asked to ride the Binion stage coming into the Oklahoma City Myriad Center, or not the Myriad Center, the Coliseum. And I'm going to tell you something. If you've never been on top of a stagecoach going at full gallop, you have not lived. And you might not live much longer.
Well, just looking at this picture, I've got to tell people out there, I see 6 maxed, pure black, amazing-looking horses.
Yeah.
Just a maxed set of 6 horses and a really very well-constructed, beautiful redone stagecoach. That would be great.
It was, but I had no idea what Scott was going to do, the driver, and I got on that stage way out and back in a holding warm-up area. And going into the Coliseum, it only had about, honestly, a 3-inch clearance on the hubs on the wheel on each side. And he came in at a dead run pulling that stagecoach. Now, he goes in at a angle to go to one end of the Coliseum. I'm going to try to paint this picture for you. And then gets right down at a certain location and cranks the wheel of the stage and the horses to the left. And honestly, we were teetering on the 2 wheels. Meanwhile, at that time, yours truly was hanging. If you notice, I got a microphone in my hand hanging onto the top of that stagecoach. And I've got a video to prove all this that they shot from the AQHA. And I have never felt like at any second I was going to just topple off that stagecoach, either to hit the turf or go underneath the stage or the horses.
Zeb, you look a little scared in this picture.
Little scared, man. I was frightened to death.
You got a death grip on that.
Oh, I'm telling you, I don't know how in the world the shotgun driver ever managed to stay up there. It's really quite a ride.
But the stagecoach drivers were, considered heroes, so to speak, in the Old West.
Yeah.
I mean, these guys were treated well, and if you were Wells Fargo or any of these people, you want a stagecoach driver that's going to get that stage through no matter what the weather.
We were talking to Ray Bagby about this, and there's nobody that knows more about stagecoaches than Ray Bagby. He's built the new Concord stage that he's got out at his place. And the misnomer, or the misconception, I should say, that Hollywood has for many, many years about the galloping horses pulling the stagecoach, that didn't happen. They basically hardly ever went out of a walk into a jog, because that was a lot of weight over a long distance, and you weren't going to gallop those horses.
Well, just out here, not very far from us, from the City of Rocks over to Oakley, I've read the story of a young man who rode on the stagecoach, and when the snow got too deep, the horses would stop.
Yeah.
And he would get out and tromp down the snow around the legs of the horses. And when it got tromped down enough, the horses would, I think they said that they actually laid down while he tromped this snow. And when the snow was tromped down, the horses would get up and they'd take off and go as far as they could again. And they would meet halfway, the stagecoach coming from Oakley to the City of Rocks. They would trade passengers and freight. That stagecoach would head back to the City of Rocks. The Oakley one would head back to Oakley. So, and I think that happened a lot in the Old West, that stagecoaches may not have gone from here to there. They may have gone halfway and then met the coming stage the other direction and then just turned back.
I can just honestly tell you that travel in the old days via stagecoach had to be, in the summertime, absolutely ridiculous. ridiculously uncomfortable with the dust and everything else. And in the wintertime, whoo,
and
baby,
cold, yeah.
How did you stay warm?
They weren't heated.
No, they didn't have any creature comfort, I'll tell you that.
Well, and even some of the bigger stages, had quite a few people in there. I think as many as 12.
No,
Nine?
Nine is normally what Ray said they would seat. But can you imagine 3 against the walls on each side and then 3 in the middle? Or maybe they could cram more in, depending on the weight.
Yeah.
But my goodness, jostling and being thrown around in there, oh my, uncomfortable.
I think the best place would be to be up on the driver's seat, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I've been there.
Maybe it's better not to see what's coming.
Oh my, it's scary.
Well, they have those races up at in Calgary.
The Chuck wagon.
No, there's the Chuck wagon. Yeah, Chuck wagon. I've always wanted to go watch that.
Yep, Chuck wagon. But I can tell you firsthand, I think of all the things I've done in my life, that for the 10 minutes that I was on that stage, the longest 10 minutes I've ever spent, let me tell you.
Oh, I'd love to try it, though.
Oh, my. Hey, what are we going to talk about next week?
That's a great question.
That's why I asked.
And I'll know about next Monday night.
So we learned all about Black Mary.
Yeah, Stagecoach Mary, Black Mary.
Oh, my goodness.
Lived to be an old, pretty elderly lady and pretty tough.
Well, when you're going to the outhouse, she'll shoot you.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Doc. We appreciate it. Dr. History brought to you by Minnekästcha Sales, 1321 East Main Street in Burley, right across from the airport. Zach and the whole crew bringing you our dear friend, Dr. History. Before we go, I also want to remind you, too, about another segment that we have on Thursdays, and it is called Cassia County School Days, and it's brought to you by 2 of our great sponsors. First of all, A Child's World, and they're located at 1308 Overland in Burley. And, of course, for all your winter coats, they've got the winter coats right there. And they've got hundreds and hundreds of socks. Yeah, socks. That's a big deal. And all kinds of jeans for the kids and everything. Get in there and check it out at A Child's World, 1308 Overland in Burley, along with our dear friends at the Ambulatory Surgery Center, 1344 Highland in Burley, for all your outpatient surgeries, such as colonoscopies and perhaps cataract surgery, hand surgery. Call them and find out more. 677-8888. 677-8888, Ambulatory Surgery Center, and A Child's World, bringing you School Days in Cassia County on Thursdays at, of course, 10:10. Oh, my goodness, real quick, I also want to remind you, before Dr. History leaves, La Vintage Boutique at 1240 Oakley in Burley. Oh, these are wonderful people, and they offer so much with unique home decor and furniture items and clothing, and they've got all kinds of knickknacks and jewelry and essential oils, scrapbooking supplies. It's all there, and they're open Tuesday through Friday, 10:30 to 5:30, Saturdays 11 to 4. Stop in. A great place to browse and really see things that you won't see anywhere else at La Vintage Boutique, 1240 Oakley in Burley. And right now, we'll send it back over to our main studios. We'll be right back.
And now, back to Zeb at the Ranch on AM 1230 KBAR. To reach Zeb, call 436-2244 or toll free 1-866-927-4587. And now, here is Zeb Bell.
Thank you very much, and welcome to the last half hour of our program this morning. And again, I want to remind you about Lee's Furniture, Floors, and more at 459 Overland in Burley. You know what? They've got entertainment stands, and they've got the dining room sets, and they've got all the bedroom sets. They've got all the recliners. They've got all the mattresses. They've got it all. They've got it all, and the friendliest people to work with anywhere, anytime. Stop over and see them today. I know you're going to be glad you did. They've been a long-time advertiser on our program. Lee's Furniture, Floors, and more at 459 Overland in Burley. You stop in and see those good folks today. Well, I love having this lady on the program because absolutely she knows energy, and she's made a life's work out of telling us the lack of energy or the abundance of, and she knows what she's talking about. Marita Noon, and Energy Makes America Great. Good morning, Marita. How are you?
I'm I'm great, Zeb. Good to talk to you. I hope we have those technical problems fixed this week.
Boy, I do too, but bear with me. I'm not the control artist on this. I'm about 35 miles away from the studio at my ranch, and so we have kind of a go-between, so we'll do the best we can. Marita, I loved your column on the Buffalo billion fraud and bribery scheme. That was one of the best written columns I've ever read.
Well, you're so kind. Thank you. It was almost fun to write. I've been watching the Solar City story for several weeks since it was announced that the plant that the state of New York is investing $750 million in, when it was announced that it was not going to create the number of jobs that had been promised. In fact, it was cut by almost a third. Not by almost a third. It was cut by almost two-thirds, with the end result being just about a third of the originally promised nearly 1,500 jobs. But then just late last week, new corruption charges were announced, and it was like, yes, I'm so glad I didn't write on this a couple weeks earlier, because it was such a better story with the corruption charges.
You know, it sounds to me another one of those stories about renewable energy, whether solar or wind, that absolutely comes out and bites us, the consumer, with more money out of our pocketbook, right?
That is exactly what it is, and of course that's why I was happy to publish it, because it fits in with the narrative that I've been preaching really for the last 4 years, that when the government decides that it is going to pick a winner, and then it subsidizes that winner, and then it offers all kinds of grants and tax credits, the cronies line up for it. And this case in New York City, or New York State, with Governor Cuomo in Buffalo, New York, is a really beautiful example of that. In fact, it reminds me, I got started writing on this whole, what I call the green energy crony corruption scandal, back in 2012, I believe it was. Might even have been 2011, though, when there was a book an acquaintance of mine published on Bill Richardson, governor of New Mexico at the time, and the crony corruption involved in just one little government program. And I wrote, the author did a super thorough, many months long investigation, which I had a small part in, on this program and Governor Richardson. So I wrote this, he wrote a whole book on it, and I wrote a column on it, and I said, this is a perfect example in one little small case, but thoroughly documented, of how President Obama gets away with this. And this Cuomo story reminded me of much that same thing.
It's the graft and the corruption and the under-the-table money and the good old boys in the back room slapping each other on the back and taking our money. This whole thing just reeks of another renewable energy scam to hurt America instead of really concentrating on what we need, real and I would say everyday energy that we're not going to get with solar and wind.
Yes, and of course you realize last night in the debate, Hillary Clinton, reiterated her line about basically that she's going to cover the whole planet with solar panels. And that's definitely where she's headed, and it will, I believe, invite more graft and corruption.
Marita, explain to me and my audience, I can't envision a $500 million, with a B, billion, solar panels. I mean, my goodness sakes, look at the land, look at the usage, look at the danger as to what that'll cause our communication systems with our airplanes in the sky, etc. A $500 million solar panels? Please, tell me what that's like.
Well, no, you're totally right. It's very scary because we've already got rampant examples of what it will take to try to meet this. I mean, we've got birds being fried as they fly through the air from concentrated solar power plants. We've got from TV, industrial scale PV, I'm trying to think of the word for it, but industrial scale photovoltaics. We've got birds that are literally breaking their necks because we have solar panels covering huge swaths of land, especially in Southern California, and birds think it's a lake or an ocean, and so waterfowl in particular are attempting to dive into this so-called lake, and as a result are breaking their necks and dying. I mean, we've already got rampant stories like these of how this hurts, the bird population, of course, and that doesn't count the ones that are being chopped up by the wind turbines.
I go back to this, though, 500 million solar panels. I mean, what is the average size of a solar panel? And my goodness, look at the land that's got to be taken. You would think the environmentalists would be outraged over such a thing that would be absolutely defacing the landscape.
Well, many of them are starting to turn on this, as I talked about the bird stories there, and there are other ones saying, that the plants can't grow because of the solar panels. I mean, there are myriad problems with that, and I don't have the information at my fingertips, but there are other people, Robert Bryce in particular, who have done the math and figured out how much land will be required to be, taken up with solar panels because of plans such as Hillary Clinton's.
So where are we energy-wise? I mean, you are the expert. That's why I have you on this program. I mean, we're being pushed upon by the solar people, the wind people. We've got Hillary that said last night in a very subtle way that she wants to see a lot more of our tax dollars going into those industries. I mean, where are we and how concerned are you?
Well, I'm very concerned, and that's, why I'm focusing so much right now on this election, because I really, truly feel that, this election is going to make a dramatic difference in the direction that this country's energy policies go. And in fact, in my column this week, it's really about New York and about Solar City, a company I've written on quite a bit, I kind of snuck in there a paragraph about a report from the Washington Post. Interestingly, it's a report that came out last month, and I hadn't seen anything on it until I got into doing my research for this week's column. But in this report, it talks about Hillary when she was a senator in New York, how she promised to create 200,000 jobs, particularly in upstate New York, which has economically been very, very hard hit. And she talked about how this report talks about how she was going to create all these jobs. And it turns out that really what she did, and again, this is a Washington Post report. This is not from Fox News or Breitbart. And the Washington Post states that jobs data show that job growth stagnated in upstate New York during her 8 years in office, and that manufacturing jobs dropped by nearly a quarter. But then as you read the report on, it goes on to say that the ones who benefited from the legislation that she was able to pass, or some of the grants that federal grants she was able to steer towards upstate New York, actually helped benefit, it helped her loyal campaign contributors who also, supported the Clinton Foundation.
Oh, my.
And so I was very happy that I was able to get that paragraph, and there's more to it than what I've just said, but to get that into this report on jobs in upstate New York to remind people of her failure in that area, but yet also the involvement of the Clinton Foundation.
Tell me a little bit. You elaborated in the story. It was very interesting about this Solar City and the Buffalo residents and how they're worried about maybe being stuck with, in your words, the largest empty warehouse in America. Holy cow. Give us a little background on that. How big is this thing?
Yeah, it is. It's so big it's hard for me to even really grasp, just like the billions of solar panels. It's a 1.2 million square foot building that they are calling a gigafactory. And remember, Solar City is owned by Tesla, or not owned by Tesla. They are both, Tesla and Solar City, are both projects of Elon Musk, who owns 20% of both companies. And he's supposedly going to be building solar panels in this factory. He purchased Solar City purchased another company back in 2014, I believe it is, and they were going to use this amazing new technology to produce these solar panels in Buffalo, New York, which is where the state of New York gave them such an attractive offer. The state of New York owns the building, and they're going to own all the equipment inside. So realize that means a big drop in tax revenue, because if Solar City owned the building, they'd be paying taxes on that property, on those assets. But the state owns them, so the state's not going to get any property taxes from that as well. So there's the story. There's a lot of twists and turns, and of course, in my little column that I try to keep under 1,500 words, this one came in at 1,350 because it's a complicated story, and so it's a little bit long. But I couldn't even cover all of the stories that are a part of this. I tried to give folks an overview of the situation, but it's a huge plant. The jobs were supposed to be around 1,500 jobs. Now they're saying it's only going to be 500 jobs, which comes out to about $1.5 million per manufacturing job invested in Solar City by the taxpayers of New York.
And
but now the Solar City's in such financial trouble itself that it's questionable whether Solar City's even going to survive long enough to ever build one solar panel.
Oh, my goodness. And it sounds to me, the way you worded it, and you did it very well, that Governor Cuomo has kind of just walked away slowly and said that, oh, well, I didn't know this, I didn't know that, and here's a typical illegal politician washing his hands like Pontius Pilate saying, I'm innocent, I didn't do anything wrong.
You are totally right about that. And although, he has not been cleared. There is still, even though a 79-page criminal complaint was filed last week, and 9 people were brought in and on corruption charges, and Cuomo was not one of them, but his name is throughout the report. And several of these people they were Cuomo confidants. They were very close. And so many people who watch this say, if Cuomo didn't know this was going on, you could make a good argument that he should have known this was going on. And the reports show that as soon as these projects were announced, or they were even publicly announced, that these companies who got the bids, the leadership in these companies, family members of the leadership, they all started pouring money into the Cuomo campaign. So they're big donors.
One thing that comes to mind when you were talking about this in upstate New York with this huge multi-billion-dollar fraud about solar panels in this company, Solar City, in order to make this kind of a concept work, Marita, they're going to have to look at every single state, whether it's Minnesota, whether it's Arkansas, whether it's Kansas, whether it's Idaho, whatever. And what are their plans? It's got to be almost scary as to what they're planning on putting in every single state if they're going to try to develop this nonsense with solar and wind power.
Yeah, well, the interesting thing is Solar City has pulled out of Nevada. They can only make this kind of scheme work with government policies that favor them. In the state of Nevada, their regulators or legislator, I don't remember whether it was regulators or legislators that made the change, but they changed their policy so it was not so favorable to the solar companies and made it less enticing for individuals to put solar panels on their roof. And as soon as the state of Nevada made that change, the Solar City executives said, well, we can't work here. And they pulled out of the state. I have a neighbor of my mother's. You may or may not recall my mother used to live in Las Vegas area until a year ago.
Yeah.
And one of my neighbors got a job, and she'd been out of work for quite some time, and she was very happy. She got a job selling solar panels for Solar City. And as soon as the government policy that favored them was changed, Solar City said, sayonara, we're out of here. And they left, and obviously my mother's neighbor lost her job.
You know, the advocacy of this renewable energy, whether it's Harry Reid in the state of Nevada, whether it's Como up in New York, whatever, when are we going to have politicians that have the backbone? Are they even out there that are going to look at this renewable energy and say, wait a minute, we're absolutely robbing Peter to pay Paul in a system that's never going to work efficiently?
Yeah, well, you know, it's interesting to look at that, and I just want to mention, going back to a comment you made, the first half of your question there, is that in New York, and I didn't put this in my column again, you know, I just can't get everything in, but in New York, the governor, Cuomo, has a plan to get 50% of their electricity from renewables by 2030. Realize that's less than 15 years from now, and this New York independent system operator, the agency charged with managing the state's grid, said, we cannot do this. And it's amazing to talk about how much new renewable energy generation that they're going to have to put together. And for anyone seriously interested in that's listening, I'd encourage you to write down this headline I'm about to give you and look this up, because this is what I didn't get in my column. And this report from my friend Robert Bryce indicates how much land will need to be covered up with solar panels and so forth. And it's called Upstate Power Play, written by Robert Bryce. And it's a baffling story, but it really outlines that what it's going to take for them to actually meet these guidelines. And he says that they're going to have to provide about $1 billion a year in subsidies to try to make this work. It's a fascinating story. So my point here is that the state policies for renewable energy are driving this, and that's what made the whole Solar City story for New York. It fits into their plan. And this is the kind of thing that's going to have to be going on in every state to do what Hillary has proposed in the debate last night.
And all of it, to sum up, is at your and my expense. We're going to pay through the nose for this idiocy.
Yes. And our utility rates are going to go up. We're going to pay through our taxes, but also we're going to see our utility rates going up. It's a mess. It's a total mess. But I truly do believe that if Donald Trump is elected, which, we don't know, it's still looking, 50-50 basically at this point, that we will see major changes in these kinds of policies.
I hope so. I love having this lady on my program, the author of Energy Freedom, Marita Noon, always welcome on the show. Marita, God bless, and we'll talk to you again possibly next week. Thank you so much.
I look forward to it, Zeb. Thank you.
Thank you. Wonderful, wonderful lady right there. And boy, when it comes to energy, listen, can you imagine that the citizens of upstate New York, Buffalo area, they're maybe going to be stuck with the world's largest empty warehouse and all that tax money and everything down the drain because of solar energy that's not working. Holy smokes. Oh my goodness, we got to get the weather on here right now, and the weather's brought to us this hour by Scarro's Meats, 331 North Road, Jerome. The number to call, 324-7657. Oh my. I've been bragging about Don Scarrow and the crew for a long, long time, and believe me, they are your hometown meat cutter, locally owned and custom meat processor for well over 20 years. The best. Changing the way we eat, one delicious bite at a time. Right now, here's Gina with the weather.
We're looking at fairly nice weather for most of the week, but as we get into the weekend, we do have a slight chance of rain showers in the forecast. Good morning. Here is your weather forecast for this Tuesday, September 27th, and sunny skies for today. Looks like it's going to be a little bit breezy. Winds out of the northeast right around 7 miles an hour. High of 78 tonight, low of 45 tonight. Sunset's going to be at 7:22. For tomorrow, sunny skies, high of 80 with an overnight low of 52. More clouds going to be rolling in on Thursday, so we're looking at partly cloudy skies. Temperatures dropping to about 74 with an overnight low of 51. Mostly sunny and 74 for Friday, but as we're looking at the forecast right now, looks like we do have a slight chance of afternoon rain showers on Saturday, which are going to be picking up just a little bit, and a high of 65. Yesterday's high was 75. The overnight low was 40. That is your weather for Zeb at the Ranch.
Thank you, Gina, and appreciate it. Brought to everybody by Scarrows Meats. Hello, Don and the rest of the crew at Scarrows Meats, 331 North Road, Jerome. They are changing the way we eat, one delicious bite at a time. Thank you very much. A couple of things I need to get in here real quick. Number one, Thursday will be Lunch Bunch Day at Denny's, America's Diner, 611 Overland and Burley. And we want to say thank you to Smith's Food, Hanson Mortuary, Walmart, and Stokes Groceries, all of them providing gift cards we're going to have for door prize drawings. Thank you very much. Don't forget, 11:30 on this Thursday, the 29th, and that is, of course, Lunch Bunch at Denny's Restaurant, America's Diner. Then, also, put this on your calendar, October 27th. Oh, my goodness, it's going to be the Senior Junction Pumpkin Function. Frightfully wonderful. A lot of fun. And we're going to be doing our entire show over there on that morning, October 27th. That's on a Thursday, remote broadcast. We're going to have breakfast served from 7 until 10, and it's only $5. My goodness, it's going to be delicious. And T-shirts are on sale for $15. We're going to be telling you a lot more as the days go along. And so all the net proceeds go to help the Meals on Wheels, and we certainly hope you'll be a part of all the fun and festivities at the Senior Junction Pumpkin Function on October 27th. Whew. We got to get along here, and I got to tell you quickly about a great big fall tire sale, and this is taking place at your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers, all 7 locations. Oh, yes, with the best tire value promise in the industry. Peace of mind tire protection. If a tire is damaged beyond repair, they'll replace it at its value, and lifetime tire and mileage care, such as free flat tire repairs and tire rotations. The list goes on. They are there to serve you, and serve you well they do, at, of course, all 7 locations. And the best in brake service, front end alignment, shocks and struts and batteries, all of that with all 7 locations. Lane and Rupert, Dave on Blue Lakes and Twin, Mike and Buell, Mike and Jerome, the Twist family in Paul, Daniel on Pole Line in Twin Falls, and Randy on Overland in Burley. The best, your Magic Valley Les Schwab Tire Centers. Thank you very much. Okay, let's see what we got cooking for tomorrow. Dave Vigo, Indianapolis, Indiana is going to be on the air. And then, of course, we have, Susan Swift is going to be on the air. And she's written a couple of articles about, wait a minute, ladies, why do you really want a woman like Hillary for president? She's going to be discussing that, and then some other folks on the air too. So we want you to tune in at 8:06 tomorrow morning. Quickly, I've had some people say, what about your blog? Well, the way to get my blog, Cow Pies and Coffee Cups, and it's going all over the nation right now, is to just go to zebbell.com and put your address on there, click everything on, and we'll get it sent to you. Cow Pies and Coffee Cups usually comes out every week on Friday, so be sure and get that. Along with K-Bar 1230 a.m., we're on zebbell.com on the internet service all across the country, so be sure and tune in again tomorrow morning at 8:06, Zeb at the Ranch, where we always say the way things were are the way things ought to be. We'll see you tomorrow morning.